This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate fourth and final part of What If Naruto Awakens Dark Chakra. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
First person Naruto's dream. With a worried look on my face, I was flying at full speed towards a destination above the clouds. Would you please? I told myself, don't let me be too late. I then began to use my back wings to fly faster as I noticed an island being engulfed by darkness in the distance. My vision narrowed upon seeing a massive horde of monsters blocking my path. I swung my sword and yelled at the monsters, "Get out of my way." With ease, that single swing destroyed a great deal of the monsters. Subsequently, I witnessed the island begin to fragment and a dazzling light emanating from the summit of a tower at its core. "No," I muttered, trying to fly faster as my eyes grew wide. After arriving on the island, or what was salvaged, I continued. I was gripping my sword firmly as my heart began to race. With the island collapsing, I hurried to the central tower, where I saw the person I was searching for, she with the long, pale blue hair, lying down motionless in the center of the crumbling island. I mumbled, "Iris." Just as I turned to face her, she started to fall and the floor gave way beneath me. I yelled, "No, Iris." When Iris opened her eyes and saw me flying in her direction in an attempt to grab her, her eyes widened. As we kept falling, Iris sobbed, "Oh no. My prince. I'm sorry," she continued, holding out her hands for me as I frantically attempted to grasp her, saying, "I gave my word." But I couldn't keep it. She was staring at me with tears in her eyes, some of which dropped from her face onto mine, making my heart stop. At that moment, Iris was beginning to fade into the debris and ash, but not before she sent me a farewell grin and spoke those words. "I love you. Goodbye," she said, before the debris completely engulfed her. With tears in my eyes, I yelled, "Wait, Iris, no," before I too was swallowed by the debris. Redemption. Third person, Naruto opened his eyes abruptly, sat up quickly, and his breathing became labored. He muttered, trying to get his breathing under control, "What was that?" When Naruto finally settled down, he felt movement beneath him and discovered Chakra dozing off on his lap. Upon turning, he saw that he was in his apartment room. The windows, ceiling, and walls all had small cracks in them. Then he noticed that it was still dark outside. He looked at his clock on the table next to his bed and rubbed his eye. The time was 2:48 a.m. Naruto let out a sigh, collapsed back onto his bed, and peered at the ceiling. He attempted to recall the dream, but it eluded him. It seemed like a significant event to me. However, what is it? It's not what the dream was about, Naruto thought to himself, then let out a defeated sigh. It's not sure how to use it, I can't recall. Naruto yawned, thinking. Naruto closed his eyes and went back to sleep, thinking, I need to get back to sleep. As Naruto fell back asleep, Kirin, who was floating around, watched him with curiosity. I see. Whoa, it's already got going. As Kirin gradually faded away and entered Naruto's head, he mused to himself. Skipping time. A few hours later, Naruto awoke to find that it was morning. It appeared to be about to rain when he peered outside and saw that the sky was overcast. Then he looked at his watch, which showed 7:20 a.m. When Chakra awoke on Naruto's lap, he thought it was adorable that she was stretching and yawning. Chakra said, "Good morning, Naruto," and rose from his lap. Naruto arose from his bed and said, "Good morning, Chakra. How did you sleep?" before grabbing his clothes. Chakra said, "I slept well. How about you, Nya?" Naruto attempted to recall his dream after she asked, but he was unable to do so. Naruto said, "I just had a dream that woke me up in the middle of the night, but overall, I slept well," before carrying out his daily routine in the restroom. He went to the kitchen to make breakfast for Chakra and himself after using the restroom. Chakra leapt on the table and asked, "What kind of dream was it?" as she peered at Naruto as he was chopping food. "I'm not sure, I can't remember what it was Naruto's response as he seasoned the fish and served it to Chakra on one plate and himself on another. As Naruto put down her plate and started eating, Chakra said, "You can't remember? Well, I guess it's natural for some dreams to be like that." "I appreciate the food," Naruto said, starting to consume his own food. Naruto finished them off by placing both plates in the sink so he could clean it later. Chakra said, "So what are we doing today?" "We are going to train for a little bit and then help with the repairing of the village," replied Naruto. Kirin appeared in front of the two and said, "Good morning, Naruto, Chakra." Both of them said, "Good morning, good morning." Naruto looked at the clock and saw that it was 7:58 a.m. Naruto said as he went to get his sword, "We should start heading towards our training ground now." Yukino said that she'll meet me there for her training. Chakra gave a nod. "Her training?" inquired Kirin. "Yeah, she asked me if I can teach her how to use a sword and I agreed," Naruto replied. Kirin questioned, So what are you going to teach her?" Kirin nodded as Naruto remarked, "I'm going to start with the basics, and then we'll go on from there." Naruto left his front door with his sword on his back and Chakra on his shoulders after he had everything he needed. Kirin abruptly stopped as Naruto was making his way to Training Ground 7, turned to face the village gates, and then narrowed his eyes. As he returned to Naruto, Kirin thought, something is wrong. "Naruto." Kirin called out to him, grabbing his and Chakra's interest. Kirin sternly remarked, "Be on your guard today," and Naruto nodded. Chakra inquired, "What's wrong?" Kirin answered, "I don't know. I just have a feeling," and they carried on walking. Scene alteration. At her front door, Yukino was going through her bag to make sure she didn't forget anything. She was prepared to leave after finishing her look. Yukino told her parents, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to be training with Naruto, so I'll be back later." At that moment, Yukino was greeted with a smile by a stunning woman with purple eyes and white hair. Yukino's mother said, "Okay, be careful now." A man laughed and said, "She'll be fine. She's our little girl, after all." Although he had blue eyes, he too had white hair. After pouting at her father, Yukino grinned at them. Her parents smiled as she said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. Naruto's going to be with me, so you have nothing to worry about." Her mother asked, "Can you tell him we said hi to Yukino?" With a wave at her parents, Yukino said, "Sure, I'll tell him, see you later." Yukino's mother and husband both abruptly stopped smiling after she left. The husband clenched his fist and said, "I wish we could have done more for that boy. Oh my god. Danzo," he thought angrily. His spouse turned to face her husband before turning to face a photo on a bookcase featuring a headband bearing a ninja's symbol on the foreheads of a woman with long red hair and a man with yellow, blonde hair. She and her husband were to their sides, along with headbands for ninjas. She said, "Me too," as tears welled up in her eyes. Scene alteration. Yukino ran across her boyfriend while traveling to the training grounds. Yukino grinned and said, "Oh hey Sasuke." Sasuke said, "Hey Yukino, are you doing anything right now?" Yukino said, "I was just heading to our training ground. Why?" "I was on my way there as well. You want to go train together?" replied Sasuke. With stars in her eyes, Yukino exclaimed, "I'm sorry, but I was going to train with Naruto today. He's going to be teaching me how to use a sword." When Sasuke heard Naruto's name, he winced, but Yukino was oblivious. Then Sasuke recalled how Naruto shielded him and Yukino by swiftly and precisely reflecting the sand shuriken with his sword. With that sword, he was very proficient, Sasuke thought. Then he gave Yukino a sly smile. "Naruto teaching? That's surprising. I doubt you would be able to learn anything if that loser teaches," Sasuke replied. Yukino scowled and gave her boyfriend a small glare for referring to Naruto as a loser. Yukino defended Naruto, saying, "Stop calling him a loser. He is no such thing. Plus, how would you know I wouldn't learn anything if Naruto taught me?" Sasuke looked at his girlfriend and lost his smile, remaining silent. Then Yukino turned to face the clear sky, reflecting on how much stronger Naruto had grown. Yukino laughed as she continued to stare up at the sky. Naruto's gotten stronger and stronger in such a short amount of time. We may have to step up our training in order to catch up with him. With his hair blocking his vision, Sasuke balled his fist and cast a shadow over his eyes. "Naruto has grown stronger, hasn't he?" Sasuke uttered, his voice growing icily. Then he thought back to their little altercation in the Death Forest. He recalled that although he was able to get hits off of Naruto with ease, he was unable to even establish contact with him. He also recalled how he used a single sword swing to split his fireball in half. Worried, Yukino turned to face Sasuke again. She inquired, "What's wrong? Yukino, who defeated Gaara? Was it you? Or Naruto?" asked Sasuke. Yukino gave a blink. Yukino answered, turning away, "Naruto was the one who defeated him. Even though half of the fight we were fighting together, Naruto was the one who did the most. I wish I could have done more though. I felt like I was holding Naruto back," Yukino continued, recalling how she had only watched from the sidelines as Naruto defeated Gaara without her assistance. Sasuke did not say anything, considering Yukino's words. I see, he uttered. Both remained quiet until Yukino spoke once more. Yukino started to walk towards Sasuke and said, "We should be heading to the training grounds now, Naruto's still waiting for me." Simply nodding, he moved to walk next to her. Scene alteration. When Yukino and Sasuke got to training ground 7, they saw Naruto holding a sword. Just as Yukino was about to call out to him, he abruptly spun around, and two of Naruto's clones leapt out from behind a bush to try to attack him. However, Naruto avoided it by flipping backwards and landing one hand on the ground. Then, in an attempt to stab Naruto, the clone on the left thrust his sword at him. He ducked the blow by turning his head slightly. The other clone caught his attention as it was ready to swing its sword. Naruto retaliated by swinging his sword to stop the attack before it could reach him. However, he did so immediately after, stopping the clone's second attack from the left. The clone on the right attempted to attack once more, but Naruto pushed the other clone and deflected the blow. When the other clone swung its sword immediately after the first one, Naruto pushed the first one aside, causing it to leap forward and swing his sword. Naruto then flipped backward to avoid it and gained some distance. After landing, Naruto turned to face the two clones and watched as flames shot out from around his sword, causing it to glow red. Then, Naruto charged towards the clones. The clone on the left attempted to strike him with its sword. But Naruto was quicker and gave the clone a slash that caused it to vanish in smoke. When the second clone swung their sword, Naruto grabbed its arm and pulled it down. Taking advantage of the momentum, he elbowed the clone in the head, causing it to stagger back, and then he slashed the clone in half, causing it to vanish in smoke. 6 clones emerged from the earth and surrounded Naruto, proving he was far from finished. Abruptly, Naruto stabbed his sword into the earth. Fire-style sword art, burning sword dance. Fire swords shot out of the earth, piercing through every clone and making them vanish in smoke as they began to circle Naruto before vanishing altogether. For some reason, Naruto thought that his strength and power had grown significantly. Strange, Naruto mused. Whoa! When Naruto turned around, he saw Sasuke and Yukino approaching him. Naruto, that was so awesome. With stars in her eyes, Yukino remarked as she watched Naruto use his sword against his clones with skill despite being outnumbered. She was also getting excited for her training, while Sasuke's expression was expressionless as he gazed at Naruto. Naruto said, "Hey Yukino, Sasuke, good morning." "Happy morning." Yukino answered. Sasuke gave Naruto a single nod. "Are you prepared to train with a sword?" did Naruto ask. Yukino excitedly nodded. With a start, Sasuke abruptly said, shocking Yukino, "Well, I'm going. I just wanted to drop off Yukino." "What? However, I believed you desired to train." Confused, Yukino inquired. Sasuke approached Yukino and gave her a gentle peck on the lips, causing her to blush, saying, "I just remembered that I had something to do today, so I can't." Sasuke left the training area with a smile, saying, "I'll see you later though." As soon as Naruto saw Yukino and Sasuke kiss, he turned away, feeling a familiar pain in his chest from the previous time he had seen the two of them together. Seated beneath a tree, Chakra and Kirin watched the scene involving Yukino and Sasuke and cast worried and sorrowful glances at Naruto. After a few minutes of getting over her blush, Yukino forgot that Naruto was there as well. She quickly turned to face him, but was taken aback to see that he was facing away from her. "Naruto?" Yukino inquired, shaking his head. Naruto pivoted to face Yukino. "Sorry, my mind was racing. Are you prepared to start now?" Yukino nodded at Naruto, forgetting what had happened a moment before and displaying an excited expression. Unbeknownst to him, Kirin and Chakra watched Sasuke leave with narrowed eyes as they sensed hostility directed towards Naruto. Meanwhile, as Sasuke was almost out of the training grounds, he turned back and gave him a cold, angry glare while his fist clenched. "Why is he acting strangely lately?" Chakra unintentionally spoke aloud. "Have you heard a voice lately?" Yukino peered around and asked. Naruto turned to face Yukino after giving Chakra a brief, sorry, look. "You ready?" "You probably just imagined it." She nodded enthusiastically as Naruto spoke. Kirin remained silent, gazing first at Sasuke and then at Naruto as he started teaching Yukino how to wield a sword. Skipping time, after a few hours of training, Kirin was still floating beside Naruto. He still had that feeling from the morning, and he was now watching to see if anything happened. Naruto, Chakra, and Yukino were now strolling around the village. Yukino turned to Naruto and said, "Thanks for that training session, Naruto." Naruto nodded, giving Yukino a quick glance. "You're welcome, I'm surprised that you managed to pick it up quickly. It's probably because of the way you taught, Yukino said with a smile. Naruto scratched the back of his head and uttered, maybe. Kirin thought in his head, she's right, you would be a good teacher one day. I am not aware of that, was Naruto's response. To catch his attention, Yukino said, hey Naruto. Would you like to grab a bite to eat? Yukino inquired. After giving it some thought, Naruto nodded. Yes, tell me what you wanted to eat, Naruto inquired. How about ramen from Ichiraku? It's been a while since we visited, Yukino remarked. I'd like to do that. But is there anything else you think we could get? To Yukino's surprise, Naruto inquired. Why, huh? You're a big fan of Ichiraku's, so why not go? Yukino inquired. Naruto looked at Chakra over his shoulder and said, I have to be mindful of Chakra. I don't want to get something she doesn't like. It's not that he doesn't want to go get ramen. Well, why don't you just give her what she wants next? Yukino uttered. Naruto started, well, I could but Chakra interrupted him. Chakra said in her head, it's okay, Naruto. You can get me something after you finish eating. Are you sure? Naruto inquired. Chakra responded, yeah, I don't mind, to end the conversation. Naruto. Yukino said, grabbing his focus. What? I apologize, let's head to Ichiraku's. After, I'll just grab Chakra something, Naruto remarked, earning a smile from Yukino. Alright, then. Now let's move. Saying that, Yukino started walking toward Ichiraku's, Naruto trailing behind. Scene alteration. Naruto and Yukino noticed Konohamaru staring up at the Hokage monument as they made their way to the ramen stand. Yukino called out to the young boy, hey, Konohamaru. Konohamaru turned to face whoever had called him, big sister Yukino and big brother Naruto? Konohamaru, hello and how are you? Naruto uttered. I'm doing well. The school buildings are being repaired, so we have the week off, Konohamaru retorted. Naruto uttered, I see. For the two of you, how are you doing? Have you resumed your training? Konohamaru inquired. We just got back from training actually, and now we're on our way to go eat, Yukino replied. Ah, I see. There was a brief pause in which Naruto spoke. Hey, are you aware of the elderly man's condition? Konohamaru looked down and his expression darkened as Naruto questioned. Yes. Konohamaru said, shedding a few tears. They said he was in a coma and doesn't show any signs of waking up. When Yukino heard that, her expression went from sad to smiling at Konohamaru. Don't worry, I'm sure it won't be long until he wakes up, Yukino replied. After wiping his eyes, Konohamaru grinned at Yukino. Yes, you are correct. Thank you for that, Konohamaru said, bringing back Yukino's smile. Konohamaru. Hello. As Yukino, Konohamaru, and Naruto turned to face them, they saw Moegi and Udon waving. All right, I'm leaving. Konohamaru said, see you later, and started to walk toward his friends. Yukino waved and said, see ya, Konohamaru. Konohamaru turned to face Naruto and said, oh yeah. I've heard that big brother Naruto has grown a lot stronger. Konohamaru grinned and walked away, saying, you better keep it up or I'll steal the title of Hokage from right under you. He did not even slightly wince as he spoke those words. I apologize to Konohamaru, but that's no longer my dream, Naruto said to himself as he cast a downward glance. Glancing at Naruto, Yukino recalled what he had said during the Chunin exam preliminary round. Retrospective. Now that I'm thinking about it, the only reason I wanted to become Hokage in the first place was to be respected by the villagers. However, that was my sole motivation for doing so. I was self-centered because my actions only benefited me and not others, but I'm going to fulfill my new dream because it will benefit everyone. For them, Naruto grinned. End of flashback. Yukino wondered, does he really not want to be Hokage anymore? Yukino. Naruto uttered to catch her eye. What? Yes. Yukino uttered, surprised. Should we keep walking? Naruto inquired. Oh, yeah, she replied, and they both moved forward. Scene alteration. After strolling silently for a short while, Naruto and Yukino arrived at Ichiraku's. Naruto entered and said, hey, old man, Ayame. Walking in immediately after, Yukino said, hello, Ayame, Tuchi. Turning around, Tuchi grinned and said, Naruto and Yukino, welcome. As Yukino and Naruto took a seat, Ayame said, hey you two, it's been a while. Yukino responded, yes, it has. Your new ensembles suit you two very well. It fits you well, Ayame remarked. Yukino said, "Thank you." Naruto simply nodded. "Well, what do you want?" Placing cups of water in front of the two, Tucci posed the question. "Please, I'd like some shio ramen," Yukino said. Tucci nodded and began preparing as Naruto said, "The same as usual, miso ramen, but this time I want some fish cakes on the side, please." "Naruto, are you attempting a new endeavor?" As Ayame began preparing the food, she posed this question. Naruto pointed to the cat perched on his shoulder, who perked up at the mention of fish, saying, "Well, the fish cakes aren't for me but for Chakra here." "What?" Ayame spun around to find out to whom Naruto was referring. "You now own a cat?" As soon as Ayame saw Chakra, she was taken aback. He replied, "Yes, I do. She's really adorable." With stars in her eyes, Ayame spoke. Yukino purred as she stroked Chakra's chin and said, "Yeah, she is." "Well, that's nice," Chakra said in her head. "She also appears to be well behaved. Have you given her any training?" Ayame inquired. "No, I didn't. When I first got her, she looked like this," Naruto answered. Remembering what the cat did to Naruto's face, Yukino laughed and remarked, "Well, either way, Chakra is definitely better than that cat Tora." Without warning, Kirin said, "That, I agree on." Yukino laughed once more as Naruto said, "Deadpan, don't bring that cat up. Put in your order now." As he placed Yukino's and Naruto's food down, Tucci spoke. "Enjoy one shio ramen and one miso ramen with fish cakes on the side," Tucci grinned. As they started to eat, Naruto and Yukino both said, "Thanks for the food, thanks for the food." "Ah." As Chakra started to consume the fish cakes, she let out a cry. "This seems promising," Chakra pondered. "Happy you enjoy it," Naruto remarked. Following a few minutes of dining, Yukino and Naruto placed another order for several bowls of ramen along with a side order of fish cakes for Chakra. "That was exactly what I needed," Chakra thought to herself as she consumed all of her fish cakes and grinned broadly while placing her paws on her stomach. Yukino abruptly interrupted Naruto as they were wrapping up by asking him a question. She addressed him, saying, "Naruto." "Yes?" he uttered. "Are you saying that you no longer want to be Hokage?" It surprised Tucci and Ayame when Yukino asked, and Naruto froze for a second before Chakra stopped eating. "Yes, that is accurate." "Why?" Naruto remarked as he carried on eating. "Oh, that's..." Yukino clarified, "I just remembered that you mentioned during the Chunin exams that you didn't want to become Hokage anymore." Naruto gave her a nod. "Hold on, tell me why you no longer want to be the Hokage?" Ayame inquired. "Yes, that was your dream, right?" said Tucci. "Indeed. I dreamed about it, but it's not now," Naruto remarked. "However, why?" Ayame remarked, "You practically announced to the village that you would become the next Hokage." "Well, things have changed now. I'm not the same little kid you know anymore." Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "In addition," he whispered, "I have a new dream now, and it's one that's going to benefit everyone." For a moment, nothing was heard. Then, Naruto took some cash out of his pocket for the food and took out his wallet. Naruto put down the money and said, "Thanks for the food, old man. It was delicious as always." Naruto stood up and said, "There's enough money for Yukino's food as well." Yukino said, "Wait Naruto, I can pay for my own." Naruto made Yukino blush by saying, "It's okay, I have enough money to pay for the two of us. Plus it would be rude of me if I didn't pay for your food." As Chakra jumped on his shoulder and he exited the stand, Yukino said, "Well then, thank you." Yukino turned to greet the father and daughter with a smile. She said, "Thanks for the food, we'll come back soon." Just as Yukino turned to go after Naruto, Ayame grabbed her hand and stopped her. Ayame said, "Wait." Yukino turned around and asked Ayame, "Huh?" "Yukino. What's going on with Naruto? He's completely different now. What happened to him?" asked Ayame. Her father was also interested in knowing the answer to this. Yukino cast a downcast gaze. "I don't know, his sudden change happened when we were in the Forest of Death for the Chunin exams. I don't know what exactly happened to him," Yukino replied. Yukino closed her eyes and said, "But, I know I have some fault in his sudden change." She was thinking about what she and the team had done to Naruto. Tucci questioned, "Why do you say that? What did you do?" Yukino's scowl got bigger. "Do I have to tell them? How might they respond?" She sighed, thinking. Well. Yukino started to explain what had happened when a voice from outside interrupted. "There you were Gaki, glancing out the window. Yukino saw the man with white hair who had trained Naruto. She left the father-daughter pair after bidding them farewell, but not before promising to tell them what transpired when she returned. Huh? Oh hey, pervy sage. Naruto uttered, causing Jiraiya to scowl, only to have a grin take its place. Then Kirin moved to appear next to Naruto, so that only Jiraiya, Chakra, and Naruto could see him. Jiraiya grinned and said, "Hey Gaki, pack your bags, we're going on a trip." A trip? Jiraiya nodded in response to Naruto. Yukino introduced herself to the two, saying, Naruto pointed to Jiraiya, who snarled at the name before grinning at her, and said, "Oh Yukino, this is the pervy sage I talked about." Jiraiya asked, "So you're Yukino, the Gaki's childhood friend, huh?" Yukino responded, Yes I am, hello. Gaki told me some stuff about you and they were good. I hope he told you some good stuff about me," Jiraiya responded. Yukino made Jiraiya look dejected, saying, "He told me that you were a pervert for spying on the girls in the hot springs." "Okay. So tell me about this trip we're going on," Naruto inquired, causing Jiraiya to become excited once more. "Right," Jiraiya grinned and said, "We're going to be researching someone." The word research raised eyebrows in Kirin and Chakra. After Jiraiya gave an explanation of the purpose of the trip, Naruto remained silent and expressionless. Yukino was left perplexed as she trailed behind Naruto as he said, "Bye." Jiraiya let out a loud, "E," and bolted after Naruto. Jiraiya exclaimed, "What do you mean bye? I'm not interested in this trip anymore, now that you said, research," Naruto replied. "What's wrong with taking a research trip?" Yukino inquired, drawing Naruto's attention. Yukino looked at Jiraiya with disgust as she heard Naruto explain, "It's not the usual research trip. When the pervy sage says, research, it's just him peeping on some girls and taking notes for his book." Yukino questioned, "Do you not have any shame?" making Jiraiya look sad before he shook his head. "This isn't just any research trip, Gaki. There's a certain woman I need to get information on," Jiraiya replied. After giving him a quick glance, Naruto whispered in Yukino's ear. He said, "See what I mean?" and Yukino nodded. Naruto looked back at him and said, "Who is this woman anyway? And do I really have to go with you?" "First, she was once a teammate of mine, and second, I would like for you to come with me. Plus you're my student and this gives me a chance to teach you something while we're out of the village," Jiraiya responded. Naruto considered it for a short while. "What is your opinion, Kirin?" Naruto inquired to his companion. "I think you should go. Despite his research, this will let you experience more of the outside world and he said he'll teach you something," Kirin responded. After giving it some more thought, Naruto turned to face Jiraiya, who was waiting for his response. Naruto replied, "Okay, I'll go." "Good. Now you go pack your bag, and I'll wait for you at the front gate," Jiraiya replied. Naruto replied, "All right." Yukino said, "Hold on." Jiraiya and Naruto halted and gave her a brief glance. Yukino said, "I want to come with you." Huh? Jiraiya and Naruto both asked in shock. Yukino repeated, "I said I want to go with you." Just as Naruto was about to speak, Jiraiya spoke first. "Sorry, but you can't. I'm only taking Naruto with me," Jiraiya replied. "There's no way I'm going to let you and Naruto be alone. Who knows what you might do to him," Yukino replied. Jiraiya exclaimed, a little too loudly, "You make it sound like I'm a pedophile," which caused people to stare at her strangely. Chakra gave Jiraiya a sideways glance. Chakra pondered. "I just don't want you corrupting Naruto and making him like you," Yukino replied. "Naruto drenches himself." Naruto was standing aside, observing Yukino and Jiraiya as they glared at one another. Then he turned to face the people who were observing them. "Should I step in right away?" Naruto pondered. Kirin remarked, "I believe it would be best if you didn't." Following a few minutes of Jiraiya and Yukino scowling at one another, Jiraiya sighed and closed his eyes. Jiraiya said, "Fine. You can come with us." Yukino grinned in response. "Yes." Yukino began, but Jiraiya interrupted. "But Naruto is taking responsibility for you while we're out, and when he's training, I don't want you to distract him." Jiraiya was being serious. Yukino simply gave a head nod. Jiraiya said, "All right, you two. Go pack your bags and I'll meet you at the front gate." Yukino and Naruto nodded. Jiraiya started to move away from them, leaving Yukino and Naruto by themselves. "Happy," Yukino exclaimed, "so exciting, I get to be out of the village again." Naruto asked, "Is that why you wanted to come along?" That's part of it, but I also didn't want him corrupting you like I said. I'm not letting that happen, Yukino replied. Naruto stopped perspiring. Naruto started to walk toward his apartment after saying, "Okay. Well, I'll meet you at the gate. Make sure you tell your parents where you're going so they don't worry about you." "Okay," replied Yukino, heading for her house. After strolling for a few minutes, suddenly, Kirin, Chakra, and Naruto tensed up and turned in one direction. In the direction they were looking, they felt the presence of two strong individuals. Kirin questioned, "You feel that?" And Naruto nodded. "Yes." "Who is that?" asked Naruto. "I'm not sure, but I'm having that feeling from before," Kirin replied. "What feeling?" inquired Chakra. "This morning, I felt something was wrong. That's why I told Naruto to put his guard up today," Kirin clarified. Naruto said, glancing down to reflect, then making a basic hand gesture. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Beside him, a single Naruto clone materialized. "I need you to go to my apartment and pack 5 weeks worth of supplies and head towards the front gate, then tell the pervy sage and Yukino that I'll be a few minutes late," Naruto replied with a nod. The clone exclaimed, "You got it, boss," and headed for the apartment, while Naruto started to run in the direction of the two signatures. "So we're moving in their direction?" Chakra inquired. "Yes," Naruto replied, then carried on leaping off buildings and running. "Are you sure about this? I won't be able to help if they turn out to be enemies. I overextended my time here when fighting Orochimaru, so it's going to take a little while before I can fully fight again," Kirin replied. Naruto nodded as Chakra and Kirin nodded. "That's okay, I'm only curious on who these people are at the moment. But, if it turns out they are intruders then I'm not going to stand still." Naruto sensed that, after a short while of running, he was approaching some well-known chakra signatures. "I feel Kakashi Sensei in the direction we're heading, along with Asuma Sensei and Kurenai Sensei," said Naruto. Kirin remarked, "That doesn't sound good." Naruto nodded as Chakra said, "NYA, we should hurry Naruto. I think we're dealing with an intruder, now that your sensei is involved." Then Naruto started to run faster in the direction of the location. Scene alteration. Kakashi was worn out. On the water, his breathing was labored. A potent genjutsu had just been applied to the Jonin, also referred to as the Tsukuyomi. He was stabbed for 3 days straight, experiencing excruciating pain and not getting any rest. However, in reality, it only took a few seconds. He had Asuma and Kurenai to his sides, both with closed eyes, not knowing what was happening. Suddenly, Kakashi dropped to his knees. Kurenai said, "Kakashi, what's wrong?" "What happened?" "Just as that guy finished talking, you suddenly fell over," Asuma replied. Then, still gasping, Kakashi slowly raised himself to one knee. He was staring at a man with black hair who was covered in red clouds on a black cloak. Furthermore, he possessed the Sharingan in both eyes, which had 3 tomos. In fact, the man looked just like one of his students, Sasuke. This was Uchiha Itachi. Sasuke's elder brother and the ninja of the leaf are missing in S rank. Standing next to Itachi, a man remarked, "To think you could still stand after that." He looked like a shark, with white eyes and blue-gray skin. He had a bandaged sword and wore the same black cloak with red clouds as Itachi. This was Hoshigaki Kisame, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist and another S rank missing nin. With his breathing heavily still, Kakashi asked, "What is it you're after?" Kakashi asked, "Is it Sasuke?" He gazed intently into Itachi's eyes. Nevertheless, he knew who they were truly pursuing. Itachi said icily, "No. I have no interest in him." As the wind blew past them, the group fell silent. Itachi declared, "I'm after the legacy of the 4th Hokage." Itachi's words made Asuma and Kurenai cringe, and Kakashi scowled at the vanished nin. "I heard of an organization that has a group of S-rank ninjas. You're a part of that group, aren't you?" Kakashi replied. About to pass out. The 2 missing ninjas were drawn to this. "You are a member of the Akatsuki," Kakashi concluded. Itachi jerked, and Kisami's eyes grew slightly bigger. "Akatsuki? How about Akatsuki?" Kurenai and Asuma spoke. "Kisame. Rearrange. We'll take Kakashi. Delete the remaining 2, Itachi uttered hastily. Before Kisame could charge forward, something prevented him from striking. He held his sword tightly. Clank. 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 Out of nowhere, black chains appeared and encircled the 2, impeding their movement. How inconceivable, Kisame said, attempting to get away. Itachi thought, what is this? This doesn't feel like chakra. Though Kakashi was shocked to see the two ninjas bound by chains, he was even more shocked to see the person standing behind the two, perched atop a building and staring down at them. Kakashi muttered, trying not to go to sleep, no. Itachi noticed that Kakashi was staring at something behind him and he cocked his head a little to see what it was. With Chakra perched on his shoulder, Naruto stood atop a building and gazed down at them, his arm encircled by a black aura. Just moments before, he had arrived to find Asuma and Kurenai there, as well as his sensei, who was exhausted and on the verge of passing out. He had also felt two signatures. Who are these guys? He wondered as he glanced at Itachi and the shark-like figure before becoming startled to see the Sharingan. The Sharingan? He asked himself, startled. With his eyes fixed on Naruto, Itachi remarked, Kisame, that's him. When Kisame turned to face the person Itachi was referring to and saw Naruto, he grinned. So, this child is the one with the 9 tails? To think he would come directly to us must be our lucky day, Kisame remarked, grinning, and fully turned around. Kirin, Chakra, and Naruto stiffened. Chakra exclaimed, how do they know about the 9 tails? Kirin squinted as he observed the two ninjas, while in Naruto's mind, 9 tails' eyes opened upon hearing Kisame's words, and he gave the Sharingan user a menacing glare as he saw through Naruto's eyes. Naruto placed his hand carefully on his sword's hilt. Naruto, please don't, Kakashi urged, grabbing his focus. Naruto has arrived. Kurei expressed surprise as she opened her eyes and saw Naruto atop a building. Initially, she shared the same views about him as the other Jonin senseis of the academy, believing that he would be useless if he continued to play around due to his 3 graduation test failures. However, since his battle with Kiba, her perspective has changed. Initially, she believed Naruto had little chance of defeating her student, but he surprised her by defeating Kiba and even more so when he displayed that enigmatic ability during the Chunin exams. Asuma laughed sarcastically, oh, great. He too opened his eyes to see Naruto watching them from a building. I have to flee and seek assistance. It's not something you can handle, you can't handle these two, Kakashi remarked. Naruto thought to himself, run away. This is just like what happened with Zabuza. His eyes narrowed. He is correct. These two are clearly at a completely different level, particularly that guy over there, Kirin remarked, glancing at Itachi. Oh no, you're not leaving. Kisame uttered those words, breaking the chains that bound him with force. Kisame then pivoted to face Itachi, severing his chains with a single blow of his sword. Oh my god! Naruto swore. Then, with amazing speed, Kisame charged at Naruto, closing the distance and swinging his sword. At the precise moment to stop Kisame's swing, Naruto unsheathed his own sword. However, Kisame's power was greater, and Naruto was forced off the building and into the water beside Chakra. Oh no, Kurenai said as she prepared to charge at Kisame, but she was forced to stop when she felt a kunai close to her throat. Asuma felt a kunai hit his throat as well, and when both Jonin turned to see Itachi there, they were about to move. Itachi remarked, you're not going to interfere. Kisame made some hand gestures and yelled after landing in the water. Water style. Infested with sharks, while Naruto was underwater, 4 water-based sharks pursued him. Upon spotting the sharks, Naruto moved swiftly to protect Chakra by grabbing her and using his darkness to create a cocoon around both of them. The sharks circled around the cocoon once they were close, exploding once they made contact with it. Whoosh! Kisame smiled as he saw the explosion cause water to shoot out of his mouth, but the smile vanished as he deflected a large sword that was aimed at him. What? Kisame uttered a startled expression as he witnessed Naruto emerge from the water. Then he snatched up the sword of darkness and swung it at Kisame, who easily parried it but jumped back in surprise at the weight of the sword. Wow, to think a brat like you can wield that weapon so easily, Kisame replied. Calmly, Naruto remarked, you would be surprised of what else I can do. Oh my goodness? Then demonstrate for me, Kisame yelled, charging at Naruto as he did the same. After a few minutes of sword fighting, in which Naruto was clearly having difficulty, Kisame clearly had the upper hand due to his vast experience with the weapon, but Kisame also had to concede that Naruto was a skilled fighter. You're fine, young one, but I'm better, Kisame declared, unleashing a powerful swing that knocked Naruto backwards. As Naruto fell backward into the water, his breathing became labored. Naruto thought, damn. Kisame yelled and made some hand gestures. Twin water dragons are the water style. Out of the water, 2 dragons leapt for Naruto. Surprising Kisame, Itachi, and the Jonin sensei, Naruto used his sword to cut the first dragon in half. Itachi asked, taken aback by what he saw, did he just cut through chakra? He twisted his sword so that the second water dragon would strike the blade itself, and as it did, it abruptly turned back to face Kisame, shocking him even more. What? When Kisame's sword's bandages ripped off, Naruto saw a mouth full of sharp teeth that began devouring the water dragon, more precisely, the chakra, and was taken aback when Kisame's own jutsu was sent back at him. When Chakra emerged from beneath Naruto's jacket, she witnessed the entire incident. That sword has a mouth, Chakra exclaimed, looking disgusted. It appears so. Additionally, it appears that it was eroding the jutsu's chakra, Kirin remarked. Yes, but what else can it do? Wondered Naruto. A chilly voice behind Naruto startled him by saying, you shouldn't let your guard down. He snapped to his right to see Itachi. Naruto tried to slash at Itachi, but Itachi easily dodged and swiftly took Naruto's sword, tossing it aside. When did he get behind me? Naruto thought to himself. He tried to jump back, his eyes widening at the speed Itachi was displaying, but he grunted as Itachi struck him in the stomach, and he managed to avoid a swing from Kisame's sword, who was suddenly behind him. Then, turning around, he attempted to kick him in the abdomen, but Kisame sidestepped and retaliated with a kick, causing Naruto to grunt in agony once more as he slid across the water. Glaring at the two, Naruto thought to himself, damn, this is going nowhere. You're accurate. Kirin gave the 2 ninjas a glare and remarked, these 2 are too skilled and dangerous for you to handle. Just make an effort to wait a little bit longer. I smell another one coming, Kirin continued, glancing in the direction he thought the person was approaching from. Friend or foe? Was Naruto's question, and he hoped it was the former. Kirin remarked, it feels like the energy of that guy in the green spandex outfit that's coming, and Naruto nodded. After inhaling deeply, Naruto stood up straight and shut his eyes. Asuma and Kurenai were perplexed, as were Itachi and Kisame. Why did he cease to move? Kurenai said, perplexed by the abrupt change in behavior. Just as confused as Kurenai, Asuma said, I'm not sure. With a confused and worried expression, Kakashi, who was barely conscious, stared at his student, wondering why he had stopped moving. When Itachi and Kisame saw that Naruto was standing motionless and assumed that he had given up, they seized the opportunity to advance but abruptly stopped. Naruto began to feel surrounded by dark energy until darkness enveloped him entirely. Itachi tried using his Sharingan on whatever this was from Naruto, but nothing happened, which shocked and confused him even more. Kisame and Itachi were shocked at what was happening, not knowing what was going on as they watched Naruto get consumed by darkness. The 2 ninjas felt a slight chill run up their spines as 2 bright green eyes emerged from the shadows and stared back at them. At that moment, Naruto appears out of the dense shadows, transformed into his dark form. His green eyes were fixed on the 2 missing ninjas, his expression emotionless. Kisame's expression changed to a broad smirk, but Itachi remained shocked and cautious. Kisame laughed and said, well, brat, it seems you did surprise me more. Naruto remained silent and didn't respond. Kurenai said, it's that form again. Indeed, Asuma mumbled. Although it was only noticeable for a brief period of time during Naruto's battle against Kiba in the preliminary round, the Jonin now get to witness this change in Naruto once more and discover what else this transformation is capable of. Naturally, Kakashi questioned the other members of Team 7, but he wanted to hear directly from Naruto about what transpired. He wanted to ask him questions about this change, but he left for training before he could get answers. A few moments of silence passed before Naruto reached out and the Sword of Darkness, which had been lying on the ground, suddenly came flying towards him. He easily caught it and placed it behind his back. So you won't say anything at this point? Kisame inquired. Silent for a moment, Naruto extended his other hand, encircling it in a ball of dark energy that he then hurled in the direction of Kisame and Itachi. Naruto launched another blast of darkness at the 2, which they ducked out of the way of, causing an explosion when it hit the water. Kisame then lunged forward, slamming his sword at Naruto. He swung the Sword of Darkness back at her, and when they struck each other, a tiny shockwave was produced. Kisame attempted to push back, but was only able to make a little movement. Naruto, on the other hand, pushed back hard, sending Kisame flying back this time, while he stared at the missing ninja and flared his dark aura around himself and the Sword of Darkness. Naruto thought, that was payback from earlier. Then he turned to face Itachi, who was simply observing him intently, his green eyes gazing deep into the Sharingan's red ones. Panicking, Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai saw this. "Keep your eyes off of him. Avoid staring into his eyes." Asuma and Kurenai both yelled at Naruto. Itachi muttered, the Sharingan tomos spinning quickly, too late. Itachi was taken aback by Naruto's abrupt tensing up and shifting of his body, as if he were avoiding something that was headed toward him. The Jonin sensei were equally taken aback. "What was that?" wondered Naruto. Then Kirin materialized next to him. Kirin said, glancing at Itachi, "That was your senses you felt." As Kirin continued, Naruto listened and nodded. "From my understanding of the Sharingan, they can read people's movements, copy another person's technique, and put people into an illusion." Kirin nodded as Naruto continued, "So most likely he tried putting me in a genjutsu. That must be why my body tensed up and felt the urge to move." Indeed. Furthermore, given that darkness is currently surging through your body, I doubt it would have been effective anyhow. It is encircling your body like a barrier of defense. It is impossible for his chakra to have entered your body through simple eye contact and affected your brain and other senses, Kirin stated. "I see," Naruto uttered. "How do you know about this anyway?" Naruto inquired, perplexed as to how his teacher and friend were aware of the Uchiha bloodline's powers. "I visit the village library whenever I have free time to read about the topics of this era. I still have a lot to learn," Kirin answered before vanishing. With a nod, Naruto lunged toward Itachi, slamming his sword in an attempt to cut him down, but Itachi simply sidestepped and retreated. Never one to back down, Naruto unleashed a barrage of dark blasts at Itachi, who was able to quickly parry each one with the aid of his Sharingan. Itachi noticed something about Naruto, though, and he dodged every blow and slash that Naruto tried to throw at him. He thought, "He's getting faster." Yes, each time Naruto struck him and missed, he would grow quicker and more accurate each time. Naruto was about to attempt his onslaught of attacks once more when Kisame suddenly materialized in front of him and swung his sword. Kisame easily blocked the attack with his own sword and they once again engaged in a sword fight, though this time Kisame struggled with Naruto's strength and speed. Nevertheless, because Kisame was more experienced with his sword than Naruto was, he was able to block and dodge out of the way, giving him the upper hand. Taking this a little seriously, Kisame was able to inflict minor cuts on Naruto's face. Naruto didn't respond to the wounds because he could already feel them healing. The two ninjas made one last attempt to cut each other, and when their swords touched, there was another shockwave. Following the fight, Naruto kicked Kisame hard, causing them to separate from one another. The Jonin senseis were astounded by Naruto's display of strength and skill when he faced the missing ninjas, but Kakashi was even more taken aback because, unlike Asuma and Kurenai, he wasn't present to witness Naruto's battle with Neji, so he was unaware of how far his pupil had come. But this made them wonder even more, such as, how did he become this strong? What sort of exercise was he performing? What was that sword and its powers, and this mysterious power he is exhibiting? How did he defeat the adversaries, justice and the genjutsu? And, how did he handle himself like a badass while doing it? Who knows? Following their separation, Itachi moved to stand next to Kisame and they both stared at Naruto. Naruto then stopped moving as well, focusing only on Itachi and Kisame while they waited for the other to make a move. Itachi and Kisame both made the decision to move, gestured, and spoke. Fireball Jutsu is the fire style of water, burning water. Itachi and Kisame's eyes narrowed as they prepared to move, and Naruto's aura flared up as he held out his hand to unleash his respective justice. Evil binding. Suddenly, their bodies tensed, and they were immobile, only the twitches of their muscles indicating a faint attempt at movement. The two ninjas were immobilized as a thin layer of darkness encircled them as a result of Naruto using his dark energy to bind them. Naruto drew back his sword and got ready to attack, his green eyes blazing and his expression emotionless. Havoc. There was silence for a moment, and in an instant, Naruto was behind the two missing ninjas. The next action was the chopping off of both Itachi and Kisame's heads, which left the Jonin sensei and the enemy ninjas looking shocked. They didn't acknowledge it because they were still processing what had happened when the two clones of Itachi that had been holding Kurenai's and Asuma's neck vanished in a crow flock, freeing them. Kurenai began, did he just, but her voice trailed off. He just dispatched two missing S-rank ninjas, Asuma exclaimed, amazed, all by himself. When Kakashi finally reached his breaking point, he closed his eyes and began to stumble, but Kurenai and Asuma were fast to respond, pulling him up before he fell into the water. When Naruto turned around and slashed at the two missing ninjas, just as they thought everything was over, he sensed something was off. At that moment, the bodies of the two missing ninjas began to change. Itachi's body transformed into a flock of crows, while Kisami's body transformed into water. When Naruto and the other two Jonin senseis saw this, their eyes narrowed. Once more, Kirin materialized next to Naruto, observing the events unfold. Replaced by a clone? Murmured Naruto. That appears to be the case. Kirin remarked, you should have known they wouldn't go down that easy, and Naruto nodded. Well, I kind of hoped they would, Naruto mused to himself. Permit yourself to learn from this. Despite your instruction, in the future, you will face adversaries who are more formidable and proficient than ever before, Kirin stated. Yes, Naruto replied. Then, from a distance, Itachi and Kisame materialized, appearing fully connected and undamaged. Itachi said, this will have to end for now. Hey, we don't seem to have much more time left, brat. I would have liked to play with you a little bit more. How unfortunate as well. I was at last feeling inspired. It's not something that can be avoided, Kisame said, glaring at Naruto as she finished. Hey, brat. You didn't go toe-to-toe with us, so don't act arrogant and say that you did. We had a fight, so you probably already know this, but we were holding back because we thought you were stronger than we were, Kisame continued. He is correct. And this time, Itachi said, we weren't serious from the start because we underestimated you. Remember this for the future. We promise not to repeat this error, Itachi continued. Naruto spoke up just as they were ready to leave. Tell me, was the first thing he said, and as he spoke, his expression remained unchanged, stopping the two from moving and making the two Jonin sensei cringe. What makes you pursue me? What do you wish to obtain? The Jonin senseis also desired to know this, Naruto stated. Kisame opened his mouth to say something, but Itachi interrupted him. Why do you believe that we are pursuing you? Itachi wanted to test something, so he asked a question of his own. He asked, sidestepping the query. You wouldn't likely waste time on a genin, in my opinion. Furthermore, just by looking at me, you can tell that I have the 9 tails sealed inside of me. Naruto said, shocking the two missing ninjas with his deduction. And the way you just disregarded Asuma Sensei and Kurenai Sensei and put all your focus towards me, which leads me to guess you wanted to capture me, for something that requires the power of the 9 tails, right? Kisame grinned and said, wow, brat, that's a good guess you got there, but on the inside, he was perplexed because the information he had been given about Naruto was that he wasn't a very clever or skilled ninja, and what he had just heard and seen was entirely different from what he had been told. He turned to face Itachi, the person who had given him the information. Itachi thought to himself as he studied Naruto's changes, something isn't right here. This is a completely different Naruto than I remember when I was assigned to protect him while I was still in Anbu. Did something happen? Itachi concluded, looking at Kisame, it's different, I can tell. Something must have happened that caused him to change suddenly. He's no longer loud, reckless, or afraid, or if he was afraid, he didn't show it and kept a calm expression. He also analyzed his surroundings despite being in a tight situation. And to come up with this deduction on his own, even though it's wrong, it's still different than how he usually acts. It's almost like his entire personality has changed. But what exactly happened to him? Does this have anything to do with this mysterious power he has now? Well, whatever it is, it's definitely not chakra. And, for some reason, he wasn't put in my genjutsu when we made eye contact. I have to think more about this. Right now, none of this makes sense. We're heading out. Kisame nodded as Itachi said, taking a serious tone. The two ninjas disappeared without a trace at that precise moment. Before Naruto could say anything more, he closed his eyes and attempted to sense their location, but he was unable to do so. They had vanished. With a sigh, Naruto transformed back into his base form, then marched to the spot where he had dropped his dragon sword and replaced it in its scabbard. Naruto then approached Kurenai and Asuma, who were only staring at him. How are you two doing? As he approached the two, Naruto inquired. Kurenai simply nodded in agreement as Asuma said, yeah, we're fine. How is Kakashi Sensei doing? How had they treated him? Naruto inquired. Kurenai said, causing Naruto to narrow his eyes, he was put in a powerful genjutsu by that man named Itachi, the one that had the Sharingan. I see. Is he going to be okay? After asking, both Jonin nodded to Naruto. Yes. This is nothing, your sensei is strong. We'll head to his apartment to get him checked out and give him some time to recover. Thus, there's no need for concern, Asuma remarked. while the two ninjas raised Kakashi's body to enable his movement. Naruto nodded to both of the ninjas and said, "Okay, I'll leave him in your care then." He then vanished and started to walk in the direction of the village gates. Scene alteration. Naruto was still thinking about what had happened just a moment ago as he was moving. Recalling what his teammate had said during their introductions, Naruto thought, Itachi Uchiha. Was that him, the man Sasuke said he was going to kill? Kirin materialized next to Naruto, and Chakra emerged from under his jacket to take a position on his shoulder. Kirin remarked, "You can worry about that later." Kirin sighed as Chakra said, "Yeah, like we need to discuss on how they knew about the 9 tails being sealed inside Naruto and what they wanted from him. Sadly, there isn't a lot of information available. Thus, I propose that we talk to Jiraiya about this and find out what his thoughts are," Kirin stated. What about what Naruto said? They didn't really answer, but since they were concentrating on him, they were there for Naruto and the 9 tails, right? Chakra questioned. "No, that doesn't seem right," Naruto said in his head. Chakra asked, not understanding what Naruto was saying, "What do you mean? They were clearly targeting you. You said it yourself that they wanted to capture you?" Naruto responded, "Yeah, I did say that, but their actions spoke differently." "So you became aware of?" Kirin spoke up, and Naruto gave a nod. Still not understanding, Chakra said, "Huh? Noticed what?" Naruto startled Chakra by saying, "It was true they were focused on me, but I don't think they were really planning to capture me in the first place." "What makes you believe that?" Kirin inquired. "First, there was an odd feeling. Recall their words. We were holding back, which implies that they had the opportunity to seize me at any moment or right away, but they refrained from doing so, according to Naruto. Secondly, you must have witnessed what transpired. The ease with which Itachi took my sword away from me. Again, he had the option to bind me there, but he chose not to. Which makes me think that they were just biding their time or pursuing other objectives, and that I was never their intended target in the first place," Naruto concluded. While Kirin hummed along with Naruto, Chakra remained stunned for a moment before gathering her courage to ask a question. "Even if what you're saying is accurate," Chakra continued, "we still don't know why those two were here in the first place." To the surprise of both Chakra and Kirin, Naruto responded, "That's true, I don't have anything to say for that. But I think I gained some information while talking with them." "In all honesty, what did you learn?" Generally curious, Kirin inquired. "Well," Naruto began, drawing Kirin and Chakra's bodies closer together as they listened. Kirin and Chakra both had anime drops when Naruto said, "I'm still working on that." "Really?" exclaimed Chakra. "Yes, I apologize for that," Naruto remarked, patting his head. "However, I do have a theory," Naruto continued. "Is it something real this time?" Chakra inquired. Naruto responded, "I think so, and it's that I think I'm actually going to be targeted in the future." "Do you believe that their knowledge of the 9 tails has anything to do with it?" Kirin questioned, and Naruto gave a nod. Chakra remarked, "That actually makes sense. Why else would that shark guy say out loud that Naruto has the 9 tails?" There was a moment of silence before Naruto said, "Yeah, although I can't prove it, we still should be cautious." Kirin and Chakra nodded. "Are we missing something?" Chakra inquired abruptly. "What am I forgetting?" asked Naruto, perplexed. Naruto said, "Oh, are you talking about your food? Don't worry, I didn't forget." Chakra tried to consider what she was saying and replied, "Well, that too, but I was talking about something else." Naruto inquired, "Can you remember what it was?" Chakra continued to think, but eventually gave up and sighed because she couldn't recall what had been said. Naruto just gave her a pet and carried on walking when Chakra sighed and said, "No, I can't remember." In the interim, when Might Guy landed and looked around for any enemies or his companions, there were none to be found. Severe leaf hurricane. Oh, they're already gone. I assume that Kakashi's place is already occupied. I will no longer be able to call Kakashi my unbeatable rival if I am unable to get there in 3 minutes. Guy uttered those words and shot off toward his objective. Scene alteration. Jiraiya remarked, "I'm telling you, that's not what it was." Yukino listened, humming. Yukino smiled and said, Sure, you know what, I believe you." "Are you serious? Hopeful?" Jiraiya asked. When Yukino looked up at Jiraiya, she noticed that he had several red hand prints on his face. Her smile vanished, replaced by a deadpan expression. "No." Jiraiya's expression was dejected. Evidently, Jiraiya saw some young ladies entering the bathhouse while he was waiting for his student and his friend. Thinking that it wouldn't hurt to do a little last Minute. Research. He climbed to the top of the roof to watch the ladies as they change. Being so focused, however, that he failed to hear the wood beneath him cracking, and as a result, he fell through the roof and into the girls' changing room. It should be obvious what happened next, in my opinion. Arms crossed, Yukino uttered, "You deserve every single slap on that face of yours." Still staring down, Jiraiya muttered, "It was worth it." After hearing what he had to say, Yukino turned to face Naruto, who was approaching them. Just as she was about to yell at him, she noticed a large yellow bag on his back. When Yukino saw this, she blinked a few times. When Jiraiya looked up and in the direction that Yukino was looking, she finally saw Naruto, but she was taken aback to see a large yellow bag on his back. "You know, Gaki? Why is that bag filled to the brim with items?" Jiraiya inquired while shedding a tear. "Boss told me to get 5 weeks worth of supplies and then tell you he's going to be late." Naruto, the clone, said. "Are you a copy?" The clone nodded as Yukino asked. "Are you aware of his whereabouts?" Jiraiya inquired of the clone. "How the heck?" a voice said. Hearing the real Naruto speak, Yukino and Jiraiya turned to the side as he glanced over at the enormous yellow bag before turning to face his clone, Chakra eating some fish on his shoulder. As he approached, Naruto remarked, "I told you to just bring 5 weeks worth of supplies." The clone answered, "This is 5 weeks worth of supplies. 5 weeks? I think this will take 5 months to complete. Sigh, I guess this will have to do." Naruto uttered as dark energy covered his hand and extended his arm. Beneath the bag, a black and red portal materialized and absorbed it until it vanished. Yukino, not surprisingly, was taken aback by this, but she thought that now would be a good opportunity to ask Naruto about something she had been meaning to ask him about since the invasion ended. That is, the person who had materialized in front of them while they were pursuing Sasuke. When we stop, Yukino thought, I'll ask him. "So, what took place with you?" After Jiraiya freed his clone, Naruto asked. Chakra remarked, "I think it's obvious, but I could be wrong." Jiraiya started to say, well, but Yukino interrupted. Yukino leaned into Naruto's ear and said, "Oh, I'll tell you, about what had happened." After learning what had happened, Kirin, Chakra, and Naruto all desired to know. The perverted sage caused their eyebrows to twitch with irritation. "Yes, that is to be expected," Chakra replied. Naruto said, deadpan, "You deserve every single slap on that face of yours." "Ah, I wish I had larger paws so I could slap him," Chakra thought, giving Jiraiya a slight glare. With a shiver, Kirin stopped and said, "You have it easy right now, just imaging what Iris would do if she were here right now would just." He didn't even want to finish thinking about his beloved, punishing Jiraiya. Then, Jiraiya was seen crouching in a corner and muttering as she drew circles on the ground. "You would never understand my way of research." When Naruto saw this, he simply shook his head. Making Naruto look at her, Yukino asked, "So Naruto, why were you late to get here?" "I simply went to get Chakra some food before we left," Naruto stated. Yukino nodded at his words. Naruto wasn't incorrect. He did get Chakra some food, but he didn't tell her the whole reason he was late because he still needed to tell Jiraiya what had happened. Jiraiya recovered in a matter of minutes and was feeling very happy. "All right, now that we've settled in. Now is the time for us to leave." The two genin nodded after exchanging glances with Jiraiya. At this moment, "Now let's embark on this research journey." Jiraiya pointed ahead in a particular direction while posing and shouted. Yukino, Naruto, and Chakra exchanged glances before each raised a fist, or in Chakra's case, paws. "Woo, woo." Yukino and Naruto said indifferently. Kirin merely shook his head, but Chakra let out an emotional, meow. "At least try to sound excited." Naruto said, "So pervy sage, where exactly are we heading anyway?" A few miles have separated Naruto, Kirin, in his spirit form, Chakra, Yukino, and Jiraiya from the Leaf Village. With a twitch of his eyes, Jiraiya yelled, "Stop calling me pervy sage." Jiraiya shook his head and said, "It seems like you haven't recognized me as a superb person yet." They walked on until they reached a bridge. Chakra nodded and remarked, "A superb person, more like a superb pervert if you ask me," resting her head on Naruto's shoulder. Kirin listened to the conversation while floating around. Yukino tilted her head and said, "What's superb about you, Mr. Pervy Sage?" When Chakra heard this, she grinned. Jiraiya moaned and his eyes twitched once more. He came to a halt beside the bridge and pivoted to face his pupil and companion. Then he began to step dance, Jiraiya said, hopping on one foot. Toad Sage is only a disguise. As a matter of fact, he exclaimed before stamping his foot. North, south, east, and west, Jiraiya exclaimed, beginning to swivel his white hair. Jiraiya threw up the scroll that was on his back and exclaimed, I'm the white-maned Toad Charmer. Toad Charmer? Is that what he's into? Chakra exclaimed, disgusted. As Jiraiya landed on a toad's back, he remarked, and one of the legendary Sannin whom even celestial beings can't defeat. In the interim, scene alteration. Two female figures are fighting each other in an open space. Celeste and Iris were these two. Celeste froze, then shivered as she prepared to swing the sword of light at Iris. Making use of this gap, Iris attacked Celeste with her own sword of light. Hiya! Cut! Ah! Celeste was fortunate enough to deflect Iris's sword with her own, but it still sent her hurtling backwards before she landed hard on the ground. When Celeste finally opened her eyes, the blade of the sword of light was staring her in the face. Celeste let out a sigh and raised her hands in submission. Iris knelt down and lowered her sword, asking softly, "You okay?" Celeste answered, "Yes, I am." After that, Iris extended her hand for Celeste to grasp, and Celeste did so, helping her to stand. Celeste said, "Thank you," and Iris gave a nod. Iris questioned, "What happened? You just froze up." After cleaning a bit of dirt from her dress, Celeste turned to face her teacher. Celeste shook her head and remarked, "I'm not sure myself, but I felt like someone said my name just now. It gave me the chills." Well, nobody should know who you are. Maybe you're just having one of those feelings I get when I feel my beloved talking about me. I get this warm feeling in my chest, and it makes me shiver in comfort. It's almost like he's there with me again. Iris replied with a tender sigh. After Iris finished her sentence, Celeste grinned and shook her head. "No, it wasn't that kind of feeling. I wish it was, though. For me, it gave me a repulsive feeling," Celeste replied. "Repulsive?" Iris asked, perplexed. Celeste gave a nod and carried on talking. "Yes. It's like my name came out of a foul man's mouth. I don't like to speak ill of people, but that's how I felt. And, it felt like a man with white hair said it." Celeste continued to shiver. Iris muttered, "White hair? Why a specific man like that?" Iris gave it some more thought, then shook her head. "No, he cannot be the source. Anyhow, what are the chances of that? But even so," Iris thought to herself, "I'm going to teach that man a lesson about making a repulsive book like that if I come across him at some point." Then she turned to face her student. "I'm sure it's nothing to worry about, now come on. Let's go again and then we'll end it there for today," Iris replied. Celeste gave a nod, extended her arm, and her sword of light materialized in front of her, which she effortlessly grasped. Then she lunged forward, initiating contact with Iris. "Hiya!" exclaimed Celeste. Cut. Scene alteration. Even though Jiraiya had a chill down his spine, he kept dancing. Jiraiya stammered and continued, Such a stud, that he strikes fear in the hearts of people," as he spun around. He declared, striking a pose, "I am no other than Master Jiraiya." With a proud smile on his face, Jiraiya concluded his dance, saying, "Yes, I'm talking about me." Quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote single quote dot quote. Face expressionless, Naruto took hold of Yukino's hand and strode past Jiraiya in the direction of a sign pointing the way to the next town. Naruto nodded as Chakra said, "I want to unsee that." "Me too," Naruto responded. Then he raised an eyebrow to see where the sign pointed. Naruto said, "Oh, to fuck a town. It says it's 10 kilometers from here." Yukino nodded, and they started to move along the path. She said, "We can take a little break when we're halfway there," and Naruto nodded before carrying on with his stroll. Kirin remained back, completely ignoring Jiraiya as the two exchanged silent looks. "It's time to permanently remove that picture," Kirin stated, gesturing with his finger to his head, which was glowing a little. Scene alteration. Wham! In one of the Leaf Village's training areas, in the forest, Sasuke Uchiha was panting heavily. He was concentrating on honing his Chidori technique on a boulder. However, he couldn't help but think about a specific teammate. Swearing, Sasuke said, "Naruto." Retrospective. Pulling his sword from its scabbard, Naruto pointed at Gaara and then slamming it into the ground, staring her in the eyes. "Yukino's my childhood friend. Sasuke is my teammate. I won't abandon them. Yukino is precious to me. That's why I won't let anything happen to her. As for Sasuke, when he need me I'll be there to back him up when things gets difficult." I won't run away, that's why. As long as I'm here, as long as I'm still standing, you won't bring any harm to those who are precious to me, Naruto said. End of flashback. Sasuke balled his fist up nice and tight. Compared to him, retrospective. Yukino laughed as she continued to stare up at the sky. Naruto's gotten stronger and stronger in such a short amount of time. We may have to step up our training in order to catch up with him. With his hair blocking his vision, Sasuke balled his fist and cast a shadow over his eyes. End of flashback. Oh no. How is he becoming more powerful? With rage, Sasuke thought. What sort of exercise is he performing? He went on, saying he was going to make some hand signals, but... From somewhere deep inside Sasuke's head, a voice said, "It's frustrating, isn't it?" Sasuke winced and became cautious. Sasuke exclaimed, "Who's there?" In reply, the voice laughed and said, "I mean, it's only natural that kid is stronger, compared to you." At this, Sasuke clenched his teeth. "Who are you?" Sasuke exclaimed, surveying his surroundings. The voice said, disregarding Sasuke's inquiry, "Who I am is not important. But the fact of the matter is that you won't be able to beat that kid the way you are now." TCH. And why is that? Sasuke yelled angrily, causing the voice to laugh once more. With some venom, the voice said, "Why, you ask? Well, it's because he is the Prince of Darkness." But Sasuke was blind to it. Sasuke asked, "Prince of Darkness?" not understanding the meaning of the voice. "Yes, that kid. Naruto, was it? He is the Prince of Darkness," the voice continued. Sasuke questioned, "Why are you telling me this?" not being able to understand the voice. The voice said, his tone growing icy, "Because I have a grudge to settle with the Prince of Darkness. You can say me and him were friends at one point in time. And I'm planning to use you, Sasuke Uchiha, in order to settle the score between us," the voice continued. As soon as Sasuke heard this, his eyes narrowed. Sasuke asked, "What makes you think I'm going to do as you say?" The voice laughed once more. The voice said, "You will. After all, you do need power, right?" At those words, Sasuke froze. The voice went on, "You need it for your revenge against your brother." Sasuke asked softly, his voice speaking darkly, How do you know that?" With many meanings in his words, the voice said, "I know a lot more than you realize, Uchiha." As Sasuke started to say, "Really? I doubt that," the voice interrupted. Sasuke froze and balled his fist harder as the voice said, "I know about that night, the day your clan was murdered by your older brother, along with your parents." Sasuke placed his hand on the mark and continued to listen, saying, "I know about your little mark on your neck." The voice smirked and said, "I know how you and your team betrayed Naruto in the Forest of Death. I even know about your little contract to revive that clan of yours. Isn't that why you're even together with her?" the voice continued. Sasuke remained motionless after that. He sensed the person's smirk when he remained motionless and said nothing to contradict the voice. Following a pause of 1 moment. After inhaling deeply to relax, Sasuke let out a sigh. "Trying to manipulate me won't work. I don't care what you say. I won't let you control what I do." The voice asked, "Oh really, even if I offer you power?" "I'll get power my own way, and then I'll get my revenge, no matter what. Also, despite what you say, I can defeat Naruto in a fight if I want to. Even if he is this so-called Prince of Darkness," Sasuke replied. Another chuckle escaped Sasuke's thoughts. "I really doubt that. You are strong and skilled, there's no doubt about that. But I can guarantee that if you challenge Naruto now, you wouldn't stand a chance," the voice continued. "What makes you think Naruto will beat me if we did fight?" asked Sasuke. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and said, "I don't think. I know he will beat you. After all, didn't he overpower you in that little fight you had back in that Forest of Death?" The voice said, forcing Sasuke to grit his teeth once more. "Just think, if you had a real fight and suddenly getting beaten by the loser and dead last of the academy. If you can't defeat him, then there's no way you can kill your brother." The voice eventually put an end to the conversation by saying, "My offer still stands. Sooner or later, you will want power. And I'll be glad to give it to you. In exchange, you would help me settle that grudge I have against the Prince of Darkness." Sasuke simply stood there, attempting to regain his composure. Sasuke was relieved that the voice had vanished from his perception. Though he was unaware of the identity of the voice, he began to consider the offer he had received. It would be much simpler for him to kill his brother if he had this power. However, he was aware that he would need to make amends with Naruto. He's not sure why, but that's none of his concern. But he had another thought as well. How was he aware of the events in the forest? No, how in the world did he know any of that? It's not like it matters anymore, really. Furthermore, I'm not really facing any consequences for it. By now, they would have completed the task, Sasuke mused to himself. Meanwhile, a black figure scoffed in the background of Sasuke's mind after hearing what he was thinking. I wouldn't encourage jinxing. Your actions always have repercussions. I have no idea what the penalty for treason is in this day and age. However, I hope you're prepared for what lies ahead, the voice said, then vanished. Then Sasuke considered another idea. He laughed when he realized that Naruto had defeated him in a fight. Sasuke continued, making hand gestures, Naruto beating me in a fight. Yeah, right, like he can do that anyway. Sasuke's hand began to channel the chakra for lighting. Then, lunging toward a boulder, he shouted and pulled his arm back. Chidori. Scene alteration. Yukino, Naruto, and Jiraiya arrived at a small shrine, and she said, "This looks like a good place to rest." Yukino placed her bag down and followed Naruto's lead, nodding, as they sat down on the shrine's steps. The last person to take a seat on the grass close to the shrine was Jiraiya. Following a pause of 1 moment, Yukino made the decision to ask Naruto about the identity of the man she saw during the invasion. Together with Kirin and Chakra, Yukino called out, "Hey Naruto. You said you would tell me who that guy during the invasion was." She continued, shocking the trio and perplexing Jiraiya. Naruto mumbled, "Oh right, I forgot about that." Jiraiya inquired, "What guy are you talking about?" with curiosity. "Someone with black hair and unusual clothing appeared in front of Naruto and I when we were going after Sasuke," Yukino clarified. Is Kirin being discussed by her? If so, what made him reveal himself to Yukino? Jiraiya thought. That must explain why he was there at the time. Did Naruto ask him to come help me and sensei? Next, Yukino gave Naruto an expectant look that caused him to sigh. Yukino waited in suspense as Naruto replied, "Okay, I did say I would tell you." "Are you going to tell her, really?" Chakra inquired. Kirin had the same question. Disregarding Chakra's inquiry, Naruto concentrated on Yukino. With all seriousness, Naruto said, "Yukino, what I'm about to say needs to be kept a secret that's only between us. Can I trust you?" Hearing Naruto's serious tone, Yukino swallowed a lump in her throat but firmly nodded her head. Like Naruto, Yukino sounded very serious when he said, "Yes, I'll keep it a secret between us, I promise." Naruto said, glancing at her expression before inhaling deeply. Yukino leaned forward in response to Naruto's command to, "All right, so I can tell you." She blushed, though, at their proximity. The girl was startled when Naruto suddenly turned green and placed both of his hands on her cheek, causing her blush even more. What? And Naruto, what are you doing?" Yukino exclaimed as her eyes abruptly became hollow and closed. Before Naruto caught her and gently placed her head on his lap, her body began to tilt to the side. "I apologize, Yukino. But after what you did, how do you think I'll trust you?" Naruto silently stared at her. His eyes had already returned to the original shade of blue. Jiraiya got up and started to move in Naruto's direction. "Oi! Gaki, what happened? What did you do?" he exclaimed. Calmly, Naruto glanced at Chakra and said, "I just knocked her out, she'll wake up in a little bit." Chakra. Is there like a spell where you can wipe people's memories or something? I just want Yukino to forget that she saw Kirin during the invasion, Naruto replied. Startled, Chakra took a moment to gather her thoughts. Though it was only momentary, she did have a spell that could temporarily erase people's memories of a specific event. "I do, but after a certain amount of time has passed, she will regain those memories back," Chakra said. "Even if it was only for a few days or weeks, that would still work," Naruto questioned, "so it's only temporary? How long are we talking anyway?" he pondered. Chakra shrugged her small shoulders and said, "I would say a year or so, as if it weren't a huge deal." "A year? A year?" exclaimed Jiraiya and Naruto, both taken aback. Chakra gave a nod. "That. Or someone breaks the spell off of her, but it's highly unlikely because since this is a new era than what me and Kirin are used to, not many people don't even know or how to use magic," Chakra said, and Kirin nodded in agreement. "At least that's what we know so far. We haven't been out of the fire country at all, so we can't confirm for sure if people still use magic or not," Kirin concluded. Naruto, still taken aback by what he had heard, said, Okay. Jiraiya nodded in agreement as Naruto continued. "But a year? I know it's only temporary, but I thought it would be much sooner than that, like a couple of days or weeks until she regains the memory back. Well, it all depends on how much mana you pour into the spell. I was going to put a good amount into it, so that's why it would be a year or so, Chakra replied. Wait, so depending on how much mana you use, it will change the effect of the spell. But I thought it was similar to how we use our jutsus, like you need a certain amount of chakra and then perfect chakra control for it to work properly, Naruto replied. You're half correct. You still need a certain amount of mana and control over your magic so you can cast the spell. But unlike your jutsus, you can add more mana into the spell to make the effects even greater than what it's supposed to do. But, if you're not pouring enough mana, the effect won't be all that great than what you were hoping for. Kirin gestured with his hand. Kirin went on, take this, for example. Just then, a medium-sized ball of fire began to form and a red magic circle materialized on his hand. Fireball. There was a pause before Kirin shot the fireball far in the distance. Wow! Soon after, there was a tiny explosion of fire that left a sizable crater in the ground. As Kirin spoke, another red magic circle materialized on his hand. That was just a simple fire spell where I didn't put much mana into it. Now, I will show you what happens if I put more of my mana into the spell. Once again, but unlike the previous time, a ball of fire began to form. The fire continued to grow until it reached higher than Kirin. Fireball. Once more, Kirin let loose the now massive fireball, which sent a slight gust of hot air hurtling past them and quite a distance away. Wham! When the fireball struck the ground, an explosion happened just like it had previously, only this time it was much larger and more destructive. Now that a new crater has formed, the previous one was substantially smaller. Kirin asked, "You see the difference now?" Jiraiya and Naruto nodded in response. Kirin nodded in response to Naruto's question, "Yes, I do, but it can't be that easy. I'm assuming that if you add more mana, you have to have more control over that, right?" Yes, if you add more mana than what is needed without having control over it, not only will the spell not work properly, but it will have some severe backlash towards the user. Kirin replied with a nod. He looked at Chakra and said, "I see." She nodded. Chakra leapt off of Naruto's shoulder and approached Yukino, kissing her forehead. Memory suppression. Above Yukino's forehead, a white magic circle materialized, and Chakra began to glow white. Naruto questioned, "So, no other memory will be suppressed, right?" "Yeah, it will only stifle Kirin's memory and nothing more," Chakra replied as she carried out the spell. Naruto turned to face Jiraiya after hearing Chakra's words and sighed. Naruto said, "Hey, pervy sage. There's something you should know about." Jiraiya's eyes twitched with annoyance, but he was still interested in hearing what his student had to say. With Yukino unconscious and her memory of Kirin suppressed, Naruto thought this was a good opportunity to discuss the previous incident. Jiraiya inquired, "What is it, Gaki?" To Jiraiya's surprise, Kirin said, "Listen, the real reason why Naruto was late was because we had an encounter with two enemy ninjas that were in the village." However, his expression quickly became serious. The village was infiltrated by two enemies. However, how? The entire village was surrounded by barriers. Unless, Jiraiya said to himself. He inquired, "What did these two look like?" Recalling the missing ninja's appearance, Kirin remarked, "The first one had a shark-like appearance and had a bandage-up sword. I think his name was Kisame." Without warning, Chakra said, "That sword also had a mouth." "Oh yeah, it did have a mouth. Don't forget the mouth," Kirin replied. "The last one was definitely a Uchiha. Kurenai. Sensei said his name was Itachi, and I think he is Sasuke's older brother, but I can't confirm it. They also had on black cloaks with red clouds on it," said Naruto. With a finger resting on his chin, Jiraiya muttered, "I see. So it's them." Kirin asked, "Do you know who they are?" Jiraiya nodded. "I don't know much, but there is a group calling themselves the Akatsuki. It's made up of 9 S-rank missing ninjas. Kisame and Itachi are one of them. Also, Itachi is indeed Sasuke's older brother," Jiraiya responded. Jiraiya nodded as Naruto remarked, "I see. So he's the one Sasuke's after." Kirin questioned, "Do you know what their goal is?" Jiraiya shook his head, "No, I don't. I haven't got that much information yet." Kirin nodded and said, "I see," before turning to face Naruto. Naruto placed Yukino's head down carefully before getting to his feet. Naruto surprised Jiraiya by asking, "Hey pervy sage, what are the chances of that group coming after me?" The toad sage asked, "Why would you ask that?" To Jiraiya's further surprise, Naruto said, While I was fighting them, they somehow knew I had the 9 tails sealed inside me. However, his expression quickly became more serious. I had a hunch that they might be after the 9 tails, but I didn't think they would act this soon. Is that why they were at the village? Jiraiya was thinking aloud. Naruto answered, no, I think they weren't there for me. This caught Jiraiya's interest. They had multiple chances of capturing me while we were fighting, yet they didn't take it. This led me to believe they weren't after me and they were in the village for something or someone else. However, I think I still might be targeted in the future, since they know I have the 9 tails. Jiraiya heard this and nodded. Jiraiya nodded and muttered, I see. Well, one thing is for sure now. Their goal has something to do with the 9 tails. If that's true, then there's no doubt that you will be targeted, Jiraiya replied. Do you know what they can do if they get their hands on the 9 tails? Asked Kirin. Jiraiya gave a headshake. I still need more information so I can confirm what you said. Once I get more information, I'll tell you about it as soon as I can. Jiraiya replied with a nod. Chakra said, sigh, I'm done. Out of the blue, Jiraiya, Kirin, and Naruto all turned to face Chakra. The magic circle disappeared from her paws, and she stopped glowing. Naruto approached and said, you finished the spell? Chakra gave a nod. Yep. When she wakes up, she shouldn't remember anything about Kirin appearing during the invasion. Chakra replied. Yukino began to tilt her head to the side and make a little noise as soon as she said that. Chakra leapt up onto Naruto's shoulders and said, in the nick of time, too. Jiraiya said, we'll wrap up this discussion at a later time, to which Kirin and Naruto nodded. Naruto said to the white cat, thank you, Chakra, for doing this. The cat nodded slightly. You're welcome. Slowly, Yukino's eyelids opened, and she blinked repeatedly to get used to the new light. To get Yukino's attention, Naruto said, Yukino, you okay? Naruto. What happened? She exclaimed, using Naruto's assistance to slowly sit up. Naruto answered, you passed out all of a sudden. She questioned, really? Well, how long was I out for? Naruto answered, just a few minutes. Are you feeling okay? Yukino started, why? Yeah, I am. But, before pausing, she said to herself, I feel like I've forgotten something. Naruto snapped her out of her reverie with the words, but what? Oh, nothing, I just thought I forgot something, that's all, Yukino replied. I see. It succeeded, he thought relievedly. As Yukino and Naruto conversed, Kirin addressed Jiraiya on a crucial matter. Kirin spoke, attracting the sage's attention, Jiraiya. Kirin turned to Jiraiya and said, I hope you didn't forget we need to have that serious talk about that Minato guy, right? Kirin gave him a strange look as he said, I didn't forget, but I would rather have that talk when we're alone. Kirin said, floating away slowly, you know I'm already taken, right? Also, I'm not into that. Jiraiya yelled, it's not like that, to catch the genin off guard. Confused, Yukino questioned, who is he shouting to? Naruto shook his head and said, I have no idea. Scene alteration. Finally, we're finished. Celeste stretched with a sigh. Now she was strolling through a crowded town inside a large void. She had Iris floating next to her. Aside from that little distraction you did really well, Iris replied. Celeste shuddered and said, don't remind me, please, and, thank you. Iris laughed. Iris said, setting that aside, I'm curious how people can live inside this hole, and Celeste gave her a nod. Especially when it rains. It must be tough. Celeste saw that some stalls were being set up as she was moving around, some for games, some for food. Out loud, Celeste inquired, is everyone setting up for a festival? Beside her an elderly woman said, there certainly will be. She was having trouble holding both boxes. Celeste inquired, do you need help carrying those boxes? The old woman was holding a box on top when it suddenly fell over. Oh no, thank you, but I got it. Whoa. Celeste acted swiftly, catching the box before it could fall to the floor. Celeste laughed and said, whoa, it looks like you do need my help after all, huh? The elderly woman gave Celeste a smile. The elderly woman said, oh thank you, young lady. I'm sorry for the trouble I caused. Celeste gave a headshake. She walked the elderly woman to a small tent, saying, it's no trouble at all, really. After entering the tent, they found it to be mostly dark with a few candles lit to create a particular ambiance. There was a clear ball in the center of the circular table in the middle. The two set down the boxes. The elderly woman said, I really appreciate you helping me, young lady. Thank you. Celeste turned to look at her, grinning. Like I said, it's no problem at all, she replied. So what's the festival for anyway? Is it something traditional? She continued. Oh no, it's nothing like that. It's just something we do for travelers that come to our small town, the elderly lady replied. Celeste gave a nod. Okay, so what kind of stall are you putting up? Well, the old woman explained, it's actually a fortune-telling booth I'm setting up. Celeste's eyes grew wide, but Iris was perplexed next to her. What's fortune-telling? In essence, it is a prophecy of what may or may not occur in the future. Iris nodded as Celeste clarified, it tells information about one's life and or predicts future events. How fascinating. But, I don't sense an ounce of mana in this woman. So how can she predict the future? Iris replied. I'm not sure. Celeste shrugged her shoulders, I guess some people are just born that way. The elderly woman asked, catching Celeste's attention, something wrong, dear? Oh no, nothing is wrong. It's just... The elderly woman smiled knowingly and said, you were talking to that friend of yours, right? The old woman's words caused Celeste and Iris's eyes to widen, but Celeste kept her composure and grinned. Celeste said, who are you talking about? There's no one else but us. The elderly lady merely shook her head. Celeste nodded slowly as the elderly woman said, oh, it's nothing. I sometimes say the strangest things all of a sudden. The elderly woman abruptly asked, startling Celeste and Iris, say dear, would you like to hear your fortune? Celeste uttered, my fortune? I don't know, I'm not sure. Celeste shook her head, but the elderly woman continued, if you're worried about paying, then don't be. Think of it as a thank you for helping me. No, it's not that. It's just that I don't know if I want to hear my fortune, Celeste replied. The elderly woman questioned, are you possibly afraid of what's to come of the future? Celeste mumbled, a little. Celeste recoiled a little when Iris said, I say you should do it. Do you believe I should? Iris nodded as she asked. It would give us a heads up on what we need to look out for anyway, Iris replied. Celeste considered what Iris had said, and she agreed. Not everything this woman would say will actually come to pass, after all. Celeste grinned and said to the elderly ladies, okay, I would like to have my fortune told. That's great. Now, could you please take a seat and review the plans you want to select? The elderly woman said, moving to the other side of the table. After a moment of confusion, Celeste and Iris noticed a sheet of paper had appeared on the table. Celeste thought, I didn't even see the paper when I came in. Celeste nodded as Iris remarked, me neither, like it suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The two girls perused the document. There were 4 different plans available. The first was the fundamental scheme. The love plan was the second. The future plan was the third. The most recent one was referred to as the premium plan, which included both the regular and future readings in addition to the love reading. Which one ought I to pick? Celeste pondered. Iris said, glancing through the other plans, it would be easy to just do the future plan. But, I'm curious about the premium one. Are you certain you want to know about the premium? Or, with a deadpan expression, you really just want to hear about who I end up with? Celeste thought to herself. No. I'm saying the premium because the old women said you can choose which one you want without paying. And, so I thought it would be a waste not to go with the premium since it's the more pricey one. Iris clarified. Celeste turned to face Iris and said, Right. Iris simply turned away. She was considering taking the premium, though, not because she was curious to find out who she would end up with, but because, as Iris mentioned, it would be a waste. The elderly woman asked, have you chosen? She was dressed almost like a witch in a dark blue hoodie, which caught Celeste and Iris' attention as they looked up. Yes, I have. I would like to do the premium plan, Celeste replied. The elderly ladies gave a nod. The elderly woman said, all right, now let's get started, and motioned for Celeste to open her arms, which Celeste did. What's your name? Inquired the elderly woman. She said, Celeste Leora. Glow. Abruptly, the clear ball at the center erupted into a brilliant light that filled the entire tent. Celeste and Iris were astonished that the transparent ball in the center shone, even though the elderly woman had to shield her eyes from the intense light. The elderly woman exclaimed, oh my! This hasn't happened before, with a surprised tone. The light from the clear ball gradually faded away after a few minutes. Celeste and the elderly women regained their vision. What was that? Inquired Celeste. The elderly women remarked, my crystal ball never reacted like this before. Celeste inquired, is that what this thing is? The women nodded. It helps me see the past, present, and future of who I'm reading. Usually, when I ask the name of who I'm reading, it is supposed to shine a little bit. But, for you, it shined bright like a beacon. The elderly ladies clarified, and Celeste nodded. Anyway, let's continue. Celeste nodded as the elderly women spoke. When I head fortunes, I see the face, the hands, and the heart of the person. I may say something you won't like. Are you ready for that? Yes. The woman began to read her handwriting. I will now begin with the first reading. Young lady, you have a long lifeline, one that you can look forward to. I sense no major illness so far. After examining her palm, the woman turned to examine her forearms. Your academic and physical abilities are nothing to scoff at. Mostly your physical abilities, along with the skills you possess. But there is still a lot of room for you to grow at both of them and many more. You are very smart and skilled for your age. You have a lot of potential that has yet to be unlocked. So work to achieve that, and you'll excel. As Celeste and Iris heard this, they grinned. Celeste had never performed a fortune telling reading before. It was going well so far, but she knew this was only the beginning. Iris is in the same boat. Celeste and Iris noticed the sudden frown on the old woman's face and looked at her. Celeste froze at the words. It seems something tragic happened to you, my dear. Iris and she were both missing their smiles. You lost many of your beloved ones and suffered because of it. Was it your parents and clan? The elderly lady inquired. Celeste's hair obscured her eyes, and she remained silent. She gave a nod. The elderly woman silently nodded and continued to examine her arm. I can tell you were at your lowest after it happened, but because of that, you were open to the greatest change. One that gave you someone and many more you can trust and rely on. The elderly lady replied. Iris and Celeste listened without saying anything. Despite this, Iris comforted her student by placing her hand on his shoulder. The elderly woman said, please place your hand on the crystal ball. The mention of love returned the atmosphere to normal. Celeste inhaled deeply to gather her thoughts. The crystal ball glowed again, but this time it was white as she followed the elderly woman's instructions. I see. You have a pure heart that not many possess. You are certainly one of a kind. You are a kind and caring person. You can be a great leader and be a great teacher to others. I see you are willing to help anyone in need, which is a good trait to have, but be careful about who you are helping. I see that when the time is needed, then you will be a force to be reckoned with. Those who will oppose you will have to watch out. The elderly lady warned as she examined her compass. Celeste gave the old woman's words a nod. Iris had previously advised her to exercise caution in who she assists and to continue being the excellent leader that she had been. But being a superb instructor, she didn't think she was qualified for that role, so she was surprised by that. I can tell you will have a major role in your lifetime, a role that will cast a weight on your shoulders. But don't worry. There will be someone that will stand beside you all the way, that will share the weight that you have, and you will do the same for that person as well. The elderly lady continued. Celeste was taken aback, but Iris, who was standing next to her, grinned gently. Celeste could already pretty much identify this person. The elderly woman said, I'm done with the first reading. It's time for the love reading. Iris floated behind Celeste a little, giving a small happy dance to indicate that she was excited to hear the love reading, and then she floated beside Celeste again, looking nervous. What did you do? Celeste questioned, her eyes narrowing. Iris said, twitching her eyes nervously but not losing focus, nothing. The elderly woman instructed, place both hands on the crystal ball. After Celeste followed instructions, it began to glow a little brighter than before. The elderly woman was shocked and gasped, oh wow. Her eyes grew wide. Celeste and Iris asked, what is it? What do you see? As they awaited the response. I see a great and powerful romance in your future, young Celeste. It even looks like fate that brought you and your future lover together, I see. The elderly lady replied with a grin. Celeste turned a vibrant scarlet. A tiny smile appears on her face as she considers who she will be spending time with. When Iris heard this, she grinned broadly. The elderly woman continued, the man you're going to fall in love with and marry. Wait, Marry, exclaimed Celeste wildly, while Iris giggled inaudibly. Yes. The man you would love and cherish with all your heart. The one you can completely trust. The one you can depend on and lean on in your troubled times. He will always be there for you and will never go back on his word. The elderly lady replied and glanced up. Iris was beaming, and she shot a playful glance at Celeste, who was flushed as a beet. Awawawa. Celeste couldn't contain her embarrassment at how much the elderly woman had to say. She covered her brightly blushing face after removing her hands from the crystal ball. The elderly woman just grinned and chuckled quietly at Celeste's embarrassed demeanor. "You're a very lucky young woman, Celeste. Not that many people can even come close to the traits of your future lover. I'm honestly kinda jealous of you." The elderly lady replied with a grin. She was wearing a serious expression, though. "However, I can see he has an overwhelming amount of darkness within him and it will keep on growing." The elderly lady continued. Celeste and Iris emerged from their respective states and listened intently when the word, darkness, was mentioned. The elderly woman mumbled, but Celeste and Iris heard what she said. "It's weird. I don't see it as a bad thing. However, it's not necessarily a good thing either. Something must have happened." Celeste and Iris exchanged a quick glance as they thought about something. However, the elderly woman spoke once more before they had a chance to process what she had said. "We will now start the future reading." Celeste interrupted the woman, saying, "Wait a minute please." "Yes?" Celeste asked, blushing. "Can you tell me more about how he got this darkness, and, if possible, tell me when I'm going to meet my lover?" as she turned her head away. Celeste was a little disappointed to hear this but grinned at the last line. "I'm very sorry, but without the person here, I can't tell how he got this darkness. If you're worried then you don't have to be. I can say for certain that with you there with him, you will be the light to his darkness," the elderly woman said. The elderly woman went on, "To answer your second question, I saw that you will have a faithful encounter with this person in the near future. And, when that time comes, you will certainly know. Trust me," the elderly lady said. Celeste gave the woman a quick smile and grateful nod. She was happy that she would have a faithful encounter with her future partner. She was eager to find out who it would be as well. Nevertheless, Iris conjectured about the identity of the person, and her conjecture made her extremely nervous about the impending, faithful encounter. If it is who she believes it to be, then, she and Celeste will have a very happy day together. The elderly woman gestured to the crystal ball once more before saying, "Now to begin with the future reading." The woman said, "Please channel your chakra into the crystal ball." Celeste followed instructions, causing the crystal ball to glow brightly violet. What?" exclaimed the startled elderly woman. The woman merely gazed at her crystal ball, wide-eyed. Typically, the chakra that is channeled into the ball by an individual is the one that is typically blue in color. But the old woman's crystal ball displayed a violet hue instead of the typical blue chakra. Prior to Celeste arousing Iris and the light-based abilities, she had a distinct chakra color. A chakra's color shift typically represents the owner's emotions and personality. The elderly woman was taken aback by Celeste's chakra's unusual hue. What she saw inside her crystal ball startled her as well. Celeste asked, perplexed and alarmed by the elderly woman's abrupt behavior, "What's wrong?" The elderly woman trailed off, "This is." Her face was pale, as if she had seen something terrible, and Celeste and Iris could tell that wasn't good. Accompanied by Iris, Celeste hastily got up from the table and walked over to check on the elderly woman. Clasping her shoulder, Celeste asked, "Ma'am, are you okay?" Celeste touched the elderly woman's shoulder and instantly gasped. Her eyes grew wide, glowing white. Then there was a flash. Scene alteration. Celeste opened her eyes and saw a shift in her surroundings. She recoiled in a startled way. "What is this, and where am I?" Celeste exclaimed, startled. Celeste found herself in what appeared to be a battleground. There was debris and dust all over the ground. There were only clouds in the sky, making it impossible to see. Celeste can see smoke below, indicating that she was close to a cliff. Help! Me! From behind her, there was a voice. Celeste gasped in horror as she turned around. There were countless dead bodies behind her. When she peered more closely, she noticed that they were all donning ninja headbands from various Shinobi hidden villages. Celeste tried to run to the person who had called her after emerging from shock, but she discovered that she was immobile for an unknown reason. Celeste exclaimed, "What's going on?" Glancing up, she saw that the person who had requested assistance was now lying down motionless. She glanced down for a moment, then, seemingly hurried, turned to look around. She attempted to peer over the edge, but the dust and smoke remained. Celeste exclaimed, Is there anyone else here? Anyone, Iris?" As though responding to her. Below the cliff, she began to hear several voices, but they were the sounds of fighting. Celeste, relieved, cast a downward glance. She could see what was below as the dust began to part. She was glad that she hadn't. If one word could sum up what was below the cliff, it would be this. That solitary word is anarchy. When the dust settled, she noticed several individuals fighting. But they weren't fighting with each other. It was demon armies, skeletons, and enormous monsters. And there were armies of dragons. There's something ominous about each of them. To her, certain individuals were more notable than others. One consisted of two teenagers, a girl and a boy. The boy had black hair, 2 black and 1 white swords in his hands, and a long leather black coat on. The girl wore a white outfit with a breastplate, and her hair was colored chestnut. She was also brandishing a rapier, and occasionally she would yell, "Switch," as they fought together. Wham! The explosion startled Celeste, who looked above her and saw 2 more people. They both appeared to be adults and were male with black hair. In the first, there was a kanji in the back of an orange martial arts outfit. The male counterpart wears a blue jumpsuit featuring a chest plate. He wore white shoes and gloves as well. Celeste thought the 2 men were warriors. They began firing energy blasts at the armies below all of a sudden, resulting in additional explosions. The 2 men's hair colors changed after a while. Both of them had glowing silver hair and a silver aura surrounding them. The first one's hair turned a Tyrian purple and he was surrounded by the same color aura. The 2 took off in a direction after that. There were a ton more, including a boy whose body began to swell like rubber and wear a straw hat. Another boy with orange hair was also present, and he had a long katana sword, black and white, fastened to his back. At that moment, he began to attack while wearing a white and black mask that revealed glowing eyes and teeth. Celeste's eyes widened at everything she saw. She paid attention to a lot of other people, but there wasn't enough time for that. She attempted to move once more but was unable. She attempted to look further ahead, but some smoke was still being cleared. At that moment, a blast of black energy aimed directly at her emerged from within the smoke. Celeste's eyes widened once more, and she attempted to create a barrier to shield herself, but she was unable to remain motionless. When the projectile was approaching, cut. Now, the energy blast split in half and sped by Celeste. Glancing over, she saw that she had been saved by a male in his teens. He was turning his back on her, but she could see that he had sun-yellow, spiky hair, and that he was wielding a massive, black and red sword to cut through the energy blast. Just as Celeste opened her mouth to respond, the boy turned to face her. Celeste's vision blurred, making his face unrecognizable. However, she noticed 3 whisker marks on each cheek, and he gave her a smile that made her heart skip a beat. Laugh. Celeste and the boy turned to face the smoke when they heard a loud cracking sound. Celeste's eyes widened at what she saw once more. She observed numerous enormous creatures, but only 2 caught her attention. One creature had 10 tails that resembled hands and resembled a humanoid. The other was in the sky that was now fractured. She saw that everything above had been consumed by darkness as the sky turned red and black. Celeste and the boy saw a massive green eyeball with slits emerging from the crack in the sky. Celeste dropped to her knees and peered down when she saw who had emerged from the fractured sky. She began to shake in fear once she realized who this was. No, this isn't possible, she pondered. She suddenly felt a warm hand resting on her shoulder. The boy was now kneeling in front of her when she looked up. Celeste was still having trouble seeing his face clearly, but she ignored it. Even with her trembling and fear, she felt protected just by this boy's touch. She had no idea who this person was, but she couldn't quite put her finger on why she felt a particular connection to him. The boy smiled again, as though to assure us that everything would be all right, which caused her heart to race once more. The boy released her shoulder and got to his feet. Her sense of security had vanished. At that moment, the boy's back began to sprout black wings, and he turned his back on Celeste and started to float away. Celeste attempted to reach out to the boy as he drifted off, but not before the boy took off. He gave Celeste a final look and a smile before turning around. Along with his clothes, the boy's yellow hair turned black with red stripes. He shot ahead of the enormous green eye at breakneck speed with a single flap of his wings. When Celeste realized this, she became afraid and attempted to stand up. She didn't want that boy to confront that monster, but she was at a loss for words. An aura of red and black glowed around the boy as he raised his sword into the air. The boy easily avoided all of the black tentacle-like projections that the green eye hurled at him. Celeste was about to chase after the boy when she felt her body suddenly become mobile again, but it was too late. The boy raised his sword in the air and met the enormous green eyes. The green eyes shot a beam of dark purple energy at the boy, and he brought it down. After the 2 attacks collided, a bright light appeared and engulfed the surrounding area. Celeste yelled, "No," before the intense light engulfed her. Scene alteration. Celeste and the elderly woman gasped and fell backwards in an instant. Celeste turned to see that she was back in the fortune telling tent from whence she had been engulfed by the bright light. "Celeste!" exclaimed Iris as she knelt beside her pupil. Celeste whispered, her eyes still wide and empty, Iris. I saw," as tears began to fall from them. A green magic circle materialized in Iris's hands as she said, "Hold on." She placed a hand on Celeste and another on the elderly woman who shares Celeste's condition. Restoration. Celeste and the elderly lady experienced the comforting effects of Iris's recently cast healing spell. Even though there was nothing physically wrong with them, they were mentally worn out. Following a short while, Celeste got to her feet, if a little unsteady. She gave Iris a mental high five for healing her, then moved to assist the elderly woman in getting into her chair. Celeste worried, "Are you okay, ma'am?" The elderly woman just nodded without saying anything. What was that?" inquired Celeste. "You saw the future," the elderly woman remarked. Celeste asked, "Is there any way to stop that from happening? In an attempt to stop the impending chaos?" The elderly woman gave a headshake. "I did not see anything to prevent that future from happening, nor did I see an ending to it," she continued. Iris was floating by Celeste and the elderly woman, who were both worried and interested in what they saw. The elderly woman turned to face Celeste and Iris and said, "Young lady, the advice I could give you is to trust in yourself, your friends, and your allies. Trust me, you will need them along with those otherworldly visitors you will encounter. What I saw was indeed the future that you and your loved one will face." Celeste nodded, but when she mentioned otherworldly visitors, she looked perplexed. "I see. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you very much," Celeste nodded to the elderly woman. "I should probably head out now," Celeste continued. "I'm really tired," to which the elderly woman responded with a sympathetic glance. "Me too, sweetie." The elderly woman waved at them and said, "Take care now and I hope you will get through the future all right." With a wave and a smile, Celeste turned to leave the tent, Iris trailing behind, but not before the elderly woman called out. "Young woman. Not that this will improve your circumstances in the future or anything, but do you recall the devoted meeting I told you about with your significant other?" Despite their confusion, Celeste and Iris gave the elderly woman a nod. "Well, you never know when you might have that encounter. I'm going to stop there. Now go take care of yourself," the elderly woman said. Celeste blushed, but it quickly subsided. She nodded to the elderly woman before heading out of the tent. Iris began questioning Celeste about what she and the elderly woman had seen as soon as they left the tent. "So, Celeste, what took place at that location? What were you able to witness?" Iris inquired, intrigued. Celeste swallowed the lump in her throat and sighed as she turned away from Iris. I observed pandemonium. It appeared as though a war broke out, with a great number of casualties." Celeste said. The enemy was tons and tons of monsters and beasts, and then she shuddered as she recalled what she had seen. Startled, Iris opened her mouth to say something, but Celeste interrupted. Though Iris could tell she was trembling with fear, she finally turned to face Iris and said, "There's more." Celeste's observation was concerning if it made her student feel afraid. Celeste muttered softly, her lips trembling, "I saw him." "Whom?" Iris approached Celeste and placed her hands on her shoulders, asking as she floated closer. "The darkness is king. He is going to come back." Scene alteration. Now in the next town, Naruto, Kirin, Chakra, Jiraiya, and Yukino were at the hotel's entrance. Naruto glancing around, Chakra dozing off on his shoulder from exhaustion, Yukino appearing to be deep in contemplation, and Jiraiya at the front desk. Yukino, Naruto, Jiraiya turned to face the two and called out. Huh? Yukino and Naruto turned to face him. "We're going to be staying here tonight," he continued. Genin cocked an incomprehensible head. "Why? It's not too late yet. Is it still possible for us to continue?" Naruto spoke, and Yukino nodded in agreement. Jiraiya shook his head negatively while crossing his arms. A disciple should just listen to his master and not question him. When Yukino and Naruto heard this, their expressions went blank. "Just so you're aware, many of the things you do, I doubt. I just keep it to myself." Naruto crossed his arms and added, "I only came so you could teach me something, like you said you would." He approached Jiraiya, Yukino trailing behind. She did not say anything during the student and teacher's conversation. "Exactly, during our trip, I'm teaching you this technique. Thus, you should simply listen to in the interim." Jiraiya paused her conversation and peered past Yukino and Naruto. Naruto turned to face his perverted teacher and saw what was staring back at him. Yukino turned to look back after observing Jiraiya and Naruto doing the same. At the inn's entrance stood a stunning woman wearing a purple dress and long black hair. Jiraiya looked at the woman with a look of shock on his face. She turned to face the group, grinning at Naruto and Jiraiya. With a broad smile that made his mouth drop open in delight, Jiraiya was in a good mood, as always, when a beautiful woman smiled at him at his age. In the meantime, Yukino scowled at the woman, who appeared to be grinning only at Naruto from where she stood. Her irritation vanished as she turned to face Naruto, who was staring at her with a neutral expression and then narrowing his eyes a little. When the woman blew Jiraiya a kiss, he erupted into applause and began to bounce around. Naruto. What? The key to their room was dropped into Naruto's hand as he snapped out of his daze and looked at Jiraiya, who had called him. This is the room's key, right here. Enter and work on your chakra control or do something else. You get it? As he straightened himself up, Jiraiya spoke. When Yukino heard what Jiraiya had to say, she was stunned. You're just going to goof around and leave us alone? This was meant to be a research trip, wasn't it? Jiraiya ignored Naruto's question and cheerfully skipped over to the woman, not even bothering to respond. Naruto let out a sigh. Fantastic, he thought. It's time for us to settle into our room. Yukino nodded immediately after Naruto stated, there's not much we can do but wait. They started strolling through the inn's hallways, and Naruto was lost in contemplation. There was something strange about that woman, he thought. And then Kirin materialized, floating next to him, sharing his thoughts. You also observed it? Kirin inquired. Indeed. Naruto said bluntly, there's no way a woman like that would just flirt with an old guy like him. Though Kirin had to concede that Naruto had a point, his perspiration did stop. With a wave of his hand, Naruto continued, but I also did get weird sensation when she was near. Kinda like from before when Itachi tried to put me in a genjutsu. Do you believe she had one on? Kirin inquired, observing what Naruto had just done. Naruto said, probably, but we can't be too sure, and Kirin nodded. As they approached the room, Kirin glanced at Yukino, who had remained silent the entire time. Kirin gestured to Naruto, saying, she seems to be oddly quiet. He turned to face Yukino, who had remained silent the entire journey to the next village. Is it the spell's effects? Or is she thinking about what she forgot? He asked himself. When Yukino and Naruto arrived at their second floor room, he took out the slide door's key and opened it. The room was small, with 3 beds, a closet, and a bathroom. Yukino occupied the second bed, and Naruto sat on the first, noticing that she was still lost in her thoughts. Yukino. What? She jumped after being startled. I apologize for surprising you. Are you okay? Naruto remarked. Since we arrived, you have been silent. Oh, it's all right. I've been making an effort to recall the things I forgot. I just can't, though. It seems like something is preventing me from recalling, Yukino remarked, averting her gaze. Naruto thought with relief, I see, so it's just that. I was worried the memory spell was affecting her state of mind. What was wrong with that woman, by the way? Yukino inquired. Huh? Did you also notice it? Naruto inquired. Indeed. A woman like that would never make out with a guy like him. I simply don't see that occurring, Yukino said. Kirin, hearing this again, shivered and Naruto gave her a nod. Blessed Jiraiya, Kirin muttered to himself. What are we to do in the interim, then? With her arms crossed, Yukino said, I didn't want to just sit in the room the whole time. With hope in her voice, Yukino said, can we go out into town and go look around? Naruto pondered and uttered those words. You're free to leave. I'm going to spend some time here, he declared. Yukino nodded, grinning despite her frown. All right, while I'm gone, is there anything you'd like me to get you? She inquired. Naruto gave a headshake. No, I'm all right. Still, thank you. Yukino said, all right, I'll be back in a little while, and she headed for the door. She had no idea that when Naruto lifted his hand in silence, a black cat with green eyes emerged from the shadows, tilting its head and studying him curiously. Silently, Naruto said, keep an eye on her for me. The cat nodded and hurried after Yukino, who had already departed. Now that the room was quiet, Naruto turned to face Chakra and forgot she was still on his shoulder, putting her gently and swiftly on the bed so she could fall asleep. Then, lying next to Chakra, he stared up at the ceiling. Should we wait now? Kirin questioned, slouching along. Naruto gave a nod. He said, now we wait. Scene alteration. Sasuke was sprinting to the fullest. He recently learned that Itachi Uchiha, his brother, had recently arrived in the village and was now pursuing Naruto. While driving to see his sensei at the time, he continued to think about the unidentified voice he had been hearing in his head. He didn't hear it again during the training session, and while part of him dismissed it as his imagination playing tricks on him, another part of him couldn't ignore what the voice had told him about Naruto and his contract. In any case, upon entering his sensei's apartment, Sasuke was taken aback and confused to find Kurenai, Sensei and Asuma. Sensei already in the room with an unconscious Kakashi in his bed. He questioned the two senseis, but they merely sidestepped the question until a retard, that is, another ninja, entered the room and practically yelled that Itachi had just arrived in the village and was pursuing Naruto. When Sasuke heard this, he looked serious and practically ran out of the room, leaving Asuma and Kurenai slapping their foreheads in frustration. As Sasuke ran down the stairs, he passed Guy, who was panting heavily, and he wondered why, but he kept running. Sasuke's body tensed. It had been 5 years since he'd seen his brother, and now he was alone in the village, pursuing Naruto of all people. Why he was pursuing Naruto was beyond him at this point. What mattered was that he see Itachi for himself and then murder him for what he had done. He went to Naruto's apartment first, figuring that would be the best place to start. When he arrived, he opened his room's door and saw Sakura holding a box. He asked her where Naruto was, but she didn't know because she had just arrived. Sasuke became agitated and left before she could finish. He then went to Ichiraku's ramen stand, Naruto's other favorite spot, but he wasn't there either. He asked Tuchi and Ayame where Naruto was, and they replied that he was with Yukino when they went in for lunch, and later Jiraiya of the Sannin. They then claimed that they had gone on a kind of trip to find someone. Sasuke was taken aback by this because he had assumed Yukino would only be training alongside Naruto. She had made no mention of lunching with him or taking a trip. Instead, a small part of him had forgotten about his brother and was fixated on the jealousy he felt when he thought about Yukino and Naruto together, alone. Back then, he told himself, I guess it doesn't matter since she's mine anyway. The father and daughter responded that they were heading to a post station that was a short distance from the village when Sasuke turned his attention back to the reason he had come to the ramen stand. We now arrive at the location where Sasuke was on his way to the post station. He asked himself, what could he possibly want with Naruto? Sasuke was confused about why his brother was interested in Naruto of all people, and it bothered him. What made him so unique that his own brother would notice him instead of him? After a long time lost in thought, Sasuke eventually arrived at the post station and started to run around the area, searching for his Yukino or perhaps Naruto. Before long, he saw his girlfriend browsing some stalls and was sprinting in her direction. Yukino. He startled her by calling out. Sasuke? Yukino said, looking surprised and perplexed at her boyfriend. What are you doing here? Yukino inquired, but Sasuke interrupted her. Time is of the essence. Naruto, where are you? Says Sasuke. Why is he at the inn where we are staying? Yukino said, genuinely perplexed as to why Sasuke had come and was looking for Naruto. Bring him to me, please. Without realizing that Yukino and Naruto were staying at an inn together, Sasuke made a demand of his girlfriend. You still haven't told me why. There's no time, I said. We need to reach him right away. This time, Sasuke shouted, shocking Yukino even more. Oh, okay, it's this way then. Yukino and Sasuke take off for the inn where Naruto was staying. Yukino was beginning to worry. First, she was taken aback by her boyfriend's sudden appearance and his insistence on knowing where Naruto was. Moreover, she was uncomfortable with the way he was speaking to her. All of this gave her the impression that something was going to happen to Naruto without her knowledge, so she began to speed up more than usual in a panic. With a silent prayer, Yukino thought, please, Naruto, please, stay safe. Scene alteration, pick, pick, pick. Hearing a knock on the door, Naruto opened his eyes and looked at Kirin, who had appeared next to him. They both nodded. Naruto gently stroked Katra's hair and said, Hey, Katra, it's time to wake up. Huh? In her sleep, Katra muttered something and stood up, stretching. What's happening? Furthermore, where are we? Katra rubbed her eyes with her paw and inquired. Naruto said, Pervy Sage chose to spend the night at an inn. Katra nodded. Anyhow, there's someone here. Please stay hidden inside my jacket. Naruto continued. Are you serious? Who is that? Confused, Katra inquired. Katra's eyes widened as Naruto said, It's the people from before, they're right outside the door. So what do we do? Katra peered around the room and asked. Where are the Pervy Sage and Yukino? Citra continued. Naruto surprised Katra by saying, "They're out in town right now, so it's just us." Suddenly, they heard a loud knocking at the door. "Pick. Pick. Move quickly to put on my jacket." With a serious tone, Naruto stated, "I don't think they're going to knock again," to which Katra nodded. Naruto moved to the door and inhaled deeply after Katra had put on his jacket. As he opened the door, thinking, "Here we go," he was greeted by the Sharingan's bright red eyes. In the process, Naruto's eyes turned green, and the two ninjas gave each other stern looks. Naruto Uzumaki. Itachi Uchiha. They were staring at each other, tense, and then Kisame appeared from behind Itachi and gave Naruto a sly little smile. "Hey, little one. Already missed us?" Kisame laughed and said. For a brief moment, Naruto looked away from the two ninjas and down the hallway. Normally, it would be foolish of a ninja to look away from an enemy, but Naruto was sure they wouldn't attack him because, well, he still holds on to his theory that they weren't after him, not yet. He thought, "Good, it's still there," and returned his attention to Itachi and Kisame. Itachi remarked, "Naruto, you'll be coming with us. How about we head outside?" He continued. Without saying anything, Naruto slowly left the room while keeping his gaze fixed on the two ninjas who were staring back at him. After his little vision ended, Naruto looked at Itachi thoughtfully. His eyes widened slightly as he saw what appeared to be a vision of Yukino and Sasuke running full speed towards where the inn was. Naruto believes that the cat he summoned showed him its point of view of what happened. Interesting, he concluded. There was a pause before Naruto interrupted. Naruto turned to face the sword hilt resting on Kisame's back and uttered the words, "That sword. Is it true that it can eat chakra?" In an attempt to buy Yukino and Sasuke some time, Naruto inquired. "Huh?" Naruto's question appeared to startle Kisame a little, but she responded. "Indeed. Together with its ability to cut through chakra like yours, my sword Samahata, the shark skin, can also devour chakra," Kisame said, producing sounds akin to crunching. "However, what about you? Your sword piques my curiosity more. I have never before seen a weapon that has the ability to reflect back chakra like yours. There, it truly caught me off guard." Kisame grinned and said, "Makes me wonder what else you are capable of." "Who can say?" Naruto remarked, "It's not like I'm really going to tell you." Placing a hand on the sword's hilt, Kisame said, "Now that's no fun, maybe I can force it out of you instead when we take you with us." He then walked slowly toward an unfazed Naruto. Naruto said, "I don't think you will." "Oh? Furthermore, why not?" Kisame posed a challenge. "I don't think you're here to capture me, at least not yet anyway," Naruto replied. This time, Itachi raised his voice and made Naruto glance at him, saying, "That just contradicts what you said before." "Indeed, but following our brief meeting, I became more coherent in my thinking. You too had the opportunity to simply capture me, but you chose not to. Rather, you allowed it to go on as long as it did," Naruto remarked. "If it wasn't you, then what were we after, brat?" Kisame spoke, but Naruto's eyes remained fixed on Itachi. "I believe you had a higher goal in mind." Though he was merely speculating, Naruto stated, that point of view from his cat summon gave him the impression that they were genuinely pursuing Sasuke. Kisame's eyes narrowed in perplexity, and Itachi's expression or gesture remained unchanged at Naruto's words. Though Itachi didn't reveal anything, he was taken aback that Naruto surmised him by assuming he was going after his brother rather than him. He doesn't know how he arrived at that conclusion, based only on his observations, and he wasn't prepared to respond. "What took place with you?" Itachi remarked, genuinely interested in learning about his fate. There was silence in the hallway until Naruto broke it again. Neither ninja spoke during this time. "I'm not sure how to answer that." Before they could say anything more, Kisame grinned and Itachi closed his eyes as the three heard running footsteps approaching. After running up the stairs and around the corner, Yukino and Sasuke saw Naruto staring at them with his green eyes, not even surprised to see them. Yukino sighed with relief when she saw that Naruto was okay, but she then glanced over at the two other people who were facing away from her and Sasuke, wondering who they were. Then, she narrowed her eyes as she saw the man who was closer to Naruto had his hand on the hilt of his sword. Just as she was about to bolt forward, a hand stopped her. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was Sasuke. "What are you doing, Sasuke? Let me go." In an attempt to free her hand and approach Naruto, Yukino uttered those words. Yukino wondered what had gotten into Sasuke, but she gave up when she heard Itachi speak. Sasuke ignored her and prevented her from moving, his gaze fixed on Itachi's back without even blinking. A long time has passed. Itachi said, speaking in an emotionless voice, Sasuke. Yukino was shocked to learn that this stranger, whom she had never seen or spoken to before, was her boyfriend. She wondered who this man could be and looked to Sasuke to see if he recognized her. Sasuke said, Itachi Uchiha. When Sasuke said the name, Yukino's eyes grew wide, and she turned to face Itachi, who remained motionless. Yukino glared at the two ninjas, her mind racing with questions like, Itachi Uchiha? Is this his older brother he told me about? Why is he here? And, is he after Naruto? She forced them down after noticing the tension in the area. Well, the shareholder. And he resembles you quite a bit, Kisame remarked, turning to face Yukino and Sasuke, who can now clearly see his face. Who exactly is he? Kisame inquired. Itachi said, he's my younger brother. However, I've heard that the Uchiha clan as a whole was killed. By you, Kisame uttered, keeping his gaze fixed on Sasuke or Yukino. Itachi refrained from saying anything more because he didn't have to. Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke uttered, drawing attention from Kisame, Yukino, and Naruto. I'm about to murder you, Sasuke continued. At this, Itachi completely turned to face his brother, allowing Yukino to see his face for the first time and the resemblance to her boyfriend. There was silence in the hallway as the two Uchiha looked at one another, Sharingan active. Exactly as you stated. Sasuke uttered, I've lived, hating and resenting you, recalling the day he witnessed his brother kill their parents in front of him. Everything for the one goal of taking your life. Sasuke's left hand was covered in lightning as his Chidori came into action. Is he truly intending to charge forward? Thought Naruto. He is not acting logically. Right now, his brother is the only thing consuming his thoughts, Kirin said. Oh no, thought Naruto to himself. Kaizen. Give up. You don't. Sasuke interrupted Naruto. Stop talking, jerk. I finally get the chance to kill him after all this time, and nothing will stop me from doing so, not even you, it's me, Sasuke said, charging forward to smash through the wall with his Chidori. As Naruto was about to call forth the Sword of Darkness, he thought, this idiot, but Yukino made some hand gestures and slammed her hand to the ground. The corridor froze as ice began to rush in the direction of the two ninjas. Kisame was taken aback to realize that this girl had ice style. Kisame then shot Itachi a sidelong glance and smirked with curiosity. They nodded to each other, silently agreeing to whatever it was they both knew. Then Kisame reached for his sword, and with a single blow, the ice vanished, leaving behind only the frost. Yukino looked around in shock at what she had just seen. He has the same level of chakra cutting ability as Naruto, she thought in shock. Perish. Too preoccupied with what had happened to the ice for Naruto and Yukino to notice that Sasuke had reached his brother. Sasuke yelled as he thrust his hand forward at Itachi. Right as Sasuke's blow was about to land, Itachi swung his arm to deflect his brother's blow away from him and into the wall next to them, resulting in a burst of flame and billowing smoke. Wham! When the smoke cleared, Naruto and Yukino observed Itachi firmly grasping Sasuke's wrist while tiny lightning, like sparks, emerged from his fingertip tips. Itachi tightened his grip on Sasuke's wrist, causing him to flinch. Kaizen. Itachi noticed this and waited, curious to see what would happen. Yukino said this and started to make some hand gestures, releasing a significant amount of chakra. Naturally, he was unable to do so while Sasuke was attempting to escape. Itachi said coolly, you're in the way. Stop. Quadruple A. After his brother broke his wrist, Sasuke screamed and fell to the ground, clutching his broken wrist. Oh no. Yukino exclaimed. Ice style, frozen arm. You're too slow. Yukino's eyes widened and she spun around quickly, only to see Kisami's smiling face as he brought his sword forward and then back, striking, and instead of dodging out of the way, Yukino just braced herself for an attack that never materialized. Cry. In an instant, Naruto was in front of Yukino, having already transformed into his dark form and wielded the Sword of Darkness when he engaged Kisame in combat. Oh. We're conversing now. Kisame grinned. Naruto leapt back to where the two Uchiha were after grabbing Yukino by the waist and trying to grab Sasuke, but Kisame was not going to allow that to happen as he charged at Naruto and struck with his sword. Oh no, you don't, Kisame uttered. Chick. At the last second, Naruto stopped Kisami's attack, causing Yukino and him to fall back. When Kisame charged at him once more, Naruto narrowed his eyes, released Yukino, and charged forward to stop Kisame. Just as they were ready to clash swords, however. Poof. Kisame and Naruto both stopped in their tracks as a sudden cloud of smoke rose from the ground. Then the smoke cleared, revealing an orange frog with armor. Glancing over Naruto's shoulder, Yukino saw Chakra emerge to investigate. Huh, huh. They asked each other. I'm guessing none of you guys really know me? A voice said. Poof. A plume of smoke billowed from behind Yukino and Naruto, revealing Jiraiya with the previous women perched on his shoulder. As for me, Jiraiya, I'm not easily seduced by women or their beauty. Instead, my strength is gaining their love, Jiraiya went on. It is not my disposition to heedlessly succumb to a woman's allure. Women cry out in ecstasy at my charms when you approach them, Jiraiya concluded with a huge smile. There was an awkward silence in the hallway now, and Yukino, Naruto, and Chakra all turned to face Jiraiya blankly while Kirin, in Naruto's mind, just sighed and put his hand to his forehead. Sage pervy. Naruto said blandly, to which Yukino and Chakra nodded in agreement. That was such a turn-off. Exactly what I said, both of them simultaneously thought. Sheepishly, Jiraiya said, like I said, don't call me that in public. Naruto twitched his eyebrows and ignored Jiraiya's comment, saying, anyway, pervy sage. You claim not to be easily seduced by women, but based on our interactions in the lobby, I believe otherwise. You were swept away by that woman's alluring manipulation, Naruto concluded, glancing over at the women perched atop Jiraiya's shoulders. Don't call me pervy sage, like I said, Jiraiya yelled. They paused as they were about to argue some more to look at Kisame, who was laughing. Your master Jiraiya, a renowned Sannin, then. Kisame grinned and said, it appears you have released the genjutsu we applied to her. Yukino's gaze expanded. She thought, she was put under a genjutsu. Why would they do that? And then she gave Naruto a contemplative look. Before responding, Jiraiya remained silent and moved the woman he was carrying to the side of the wall. Using your Sharingan eye to perform a genjutsu on this woman in an attempt to keep me apart from Naruto. Jiraiya stood up and narrowed his eyes at the two missing ninjas, saying, to think you would use such a cowardly tactic. Jiraiya said, so, you really are after Naruto. Yukino's eyes widened at this. Yukino thought, what? These two are really after Naruto? And narrowed her eyes at them before glancing at Naruto. Yukino's thoughts were racing as she tried to figure out why they were after Naruto. What did they want with him? What could they possibly want with Naruto? Did he know about this? Is that why he stayed back at the inn? Because he knew these two were after him? Why didn't he say anything to me? She asked herself. Kakashi must have known about it. You provided the source of that information, Itachi remarked to Jiraiya. You are correct, acquiring Naruto is crucial for our organization's goal, Itachi continued. Yukino became tense upon hearing this. However, Naruto maintained his composure. He had doubts about their sincerity, but he still felt that they weren't there for him right now, even after receiving confirmation that they were indeed pursuing him. Yukino raised her voice again, this time with a serious tone. Why are you after him? After glancing briefly at her, the two ninjas turned their attention back to Jiraiya, ignoring her. Yukino clenched her fist, furious, wanting to know why they were chasing her childhood friend so she could stop it from happening again. Just as she was about to speak, she felt a hand grab her fist, and when she looked down, she saw it was Naruto. Naruto leaned in her direction without taking his eyes off the two ninjas. All right, I'll let you know when this is done. He whispered, and Yukino blushed unintentionally as Naruto whispered in her ear. She shook her head in response. She blushed slightly but whispered back, all right. When Sasuke saw this, he glared at Naruto while he was still in pain. He had no idea what they were talking about, but he could see that Naruto was holding her hand and whispering something in her ear, which made her blush. Jiraiya spoke, drawing the genin's attention to him, saying, I have an idea on what you want Naruto for, but I'm not going to let you take him. Is that accurate? Itachi remarked. Well, this is really ideal. Jiraiya surprised both Yukino and Sasuke by saying, I can get rid of the two of you, right here. He called back his summon, making it go up in smoke, and took a stance. After Jiraiya finished speaking, Sasuke expressed his disapproval right away. Avoid interfering. He let out a grunt. With heavy breathing and unsteady legs, Sasuke stood up, drawing the attention of everyone around him. I'm the one who will murder him. I am going to kill my brother right here, and I'm not going to let anybody else have that privilege, Sasuke yelled. He and he alone will get to kill his brother. Sasuke. Yukino mumbled in a fretful voice. Naruto thought, I didn't think his revenge was this deep. Itachi remained silent for a short while before responding to his sibling. To his brother's ire, he responded, "You don't interest me at the moment." Sasuke clenched his fist and narrowed his eyes. "Brother, don't mess with me." With a yell, Sasuke attempted to strike Itachi. He was unable to succeed, though, as Itachi delivered a powerful kick that sent his brother hurtling to the other end of the hallway. Yukino yelled, "Sasuke," and started to move forward to assist her boyfriend, but Sasuke stopped her right away because he didn't want her to get involved. Sasuke yelled at her, "Yukino, I don't want you to interfere." He began to slowly stand again. With a battle cry, Sasuke charged towards Itachi, saying, "I told you before. I'm an Avenger, and I've prepared for this very day. So that I can finally kill my brother. And no one will take this away from me." Sasuke lunged at Itachi, but Itachi easily parried the blow and gave him a forceful elbow to the face, sending him flying back to the other end of the hallway. He slouched, then slowly got to his feet to sit up. He uttered a feeble, "Not yet." Itachi answered, "You can't even make a complete hand sign at this point." Sasuke answered, "This is my fight." Itachi simply gave a disgruntled shake of his head. Then, his eyes narrowed as he glanced back at his brother. "All right," he replied. With wide eyes, Jiraiya attempted to advance, but Kisame moved ahead of him. With a sly smile directed at Naruto, he said, "You heard them. So, let's not get involved." Narrowing his eyes, Naruto focused solely on what was about to happen. He felt compelled to act in order to preserve Sasuke. However, Kisame would only obstruct the path. He simply chose to continue observing for the time being. Yukino, meanwhile, was not feeling well at the moment. In order to keep her boyfriend from getting any more hurt than he already was, she was looking for a way to assist him. She had to keep Kisame and that sword in mind, though. As Itachi approached Sasuke slowly, the two Uchihas just exchanged a look of staring until Sasuke abruptly stood up and attempted to hit Itachi once more. But didn't work out. Itachi kneed Sasuke in the stomach before he made contact. Blood spurted out of Sasuke's cough. Itachi then struck him in the neck and again in the stomach with a knee. "Why?" Sasuke pondered. "Why hasn't our power disparity changed at all? So, all of my efforts up to this point have been insufficient?" Sasuke continued. Kisame laughed when she saw this. He declared, "He's merciless." Yukino, seeing her boyfriend like this, balled her fist in frustration. Jiraiya, Yukino, and Naruto did nothing but watch as Itachi struck Sasuke repeatedly until he was on the ground. His mouth was dripping with blood. They saw as Itachi raised their brother by the collar, set him on the wall, and then picked him up again. Itachi whispered, "I'm disappointed. After all this time, you're still weak," before bending near Sasuke's ear. Itachi smirked and said, "Why can't you be like Naruto? At least he put up a better fight than you. Maybe it's because you don't have enough hate." Sasuke's shocked eyes enlarged. "My sibling, and Naruto." Sasuke was astounded by what he had just heard. He glanced at Naruto in his dark form, over his brother's shoulder. All of a sudden, he recalled what the enigmatic voice had told him. "Retrospective. You are strong and skilled, there's no doubt about that. But I can guarantee that if you challenge Naruto now, you wouldn't stand a chance." "Why, you ask? Well, it's because he is the Prince of Darkness." End of flashback. Sasuke whispered, "Prince of Darkness." He said that, and then something inside of him boiled up. Itachi's eyes widened in surprise as he heard Sasuke utter those words. He thought, "Prince of Darkness. How does he know about?" and saw that his brother was observing him from behind. He turned his head slightly to reveal that Naruto was the person he was staring at. "Naruto. That's what that was, I see. I suppose he was correct," he said, squinting his eyes. With a sigh, Itachi closed his eyes and turned to face his brother, obstructing his view of Naruto. He opened his eyes abruptly to find his three tomos spinning wildly. Sasuke froze, trembling a little, then he walked with a limp and closed eyes. His mouth dropped open as he opened his eyes a few seconds later. "Ah!" Sasuke let out a scream that seemed to be hurt. Yukino yelled at Itachi, "Sasuke! What are you doing to him?" But for the time being, he just ignored her. Kisame pointed out to Naruto, "As expected of you, using Tsukuyomi on your brother." "Tsukuyomi?" He pondered. "It's most likely that illusion he tried putting on you. He must have used it on Sasuke and made him see something horrible," Kirin clarified. "Well, that makes sense." Naruto thought, "This has gone on long enough," and he raised his sword into the air. Everyone's attention was drawn to this. "Ho? Are you finally going to do something?" exclaimed Kisame. Jiraiya said, "Hey, Gaki, What are you going to do? Naruto! Exclaimed Yukino. She wondered what was going to happen next. Ignoring them, Naruto drove his sword through the floor. The doors and windows began to disappear behind the dark purple smoke that was beginning to cover the walls in the hallway. Surprised, Kisame, Jiraiya, and Yukino retreated a step. Subsequently, all eyes turned to Naruto, who vanished into the smoke as well, leaving behind his sword protruding through the floor. After the smoke had engulfed everything, all they could see was darkness, a seemingly endless void. What? Naruto? Yukino frantically searched the area, hoping to find him. Naruto's voice echoed through the hallway. It's fine. I'm still here. Kisame tried to provoke Naruto by saying, so this is your next move? Just to hide in the darkness? Kinda cowardly if you ask me. Itachi's body tensed as darkness filled the hallway. It was then that he realized they had to get out quickly. Then, as he sees ghostly arms emerging from the smoke, he lets go of Sasuke and feels them wrap around his brother, drawing him into the smoke. Itachi said, Kisame, come, we're retreating. At first, Kisame was perplexed and wanted to respond, but as soon as he heard Itachi's somber tone, he realized something wasn't right. So, grudgingly, he obeyed. Kisame attempted to approach Itachi but felt resistance and cast a downward glance. He was gripping his sword with phantom arms caused by the smoke. Kisame exclaimed in shock, what? At what he saw. Then he felt hands grab his legs, and his body twitched. Again, Itachi exclaimed, Kisame. Kisame yanked his sword from the phantom's arms and legs with a violent, damn it, before running toward Itachi. Naruto's voice resurfaced, it's futile. You two aren't going anywhere. You have been in my trap from the moment you stepped foot into this hallway. Itachi and Kisame turned to face Naruto, who was staring at them out of the shadows with his green eyes blazing. At the final sentence, Naruto's voice grew icy, saying, how unfortunate, for you. Never. Ending nightmare. Naruto stated as much. Abruptly, several ghostly arms emerged from the shadows and raced in the direction of the missing ninjas. Itachi and Kisame both began to run more quickly. Kisame yelled, it's closing in on us, and attempted to hit one of them, but it just stepped around his sword and carried on. Infuriated, Kisame exclaimed, TCH, it's faster than us, and it looks like it has a mind of its own. This smoke isn't helping either, at this rate. Itachi began to consider his options at that very moment. The situation is such that there's really not much he can do. Then, as they're getting closer to the end of the hallway, he makes out the silhouette of the window in the smoke. That might be the way out, Itachi thought to himself. Itachi briefly closed his eyes, then snapped them open, his Sharingan spinning quickly. Whoosh! Then they lit black flames close to the window, which dispersed the smoke, destroyed the wall, and let the outside view in. Itachi exclaimed, there, to Kisame as he accelerated. It appeared as though they were going to flee. But then their eyes widened in shock when they noticed the black flames go out and the smoke forming as fast as it had disappeared. The dense cloud of smoke obstructing Itachi and Kisame's path caused them to stop. Kisame tried cutting the smoke, saying, TCH, I am sick of this smoke, but as quickly as it evaporated from his swing, it reformed in an instant. Kisame exclaimed angrily, what now, we're trapped, as he turned to face Itachi, who was occupying his mind, after turning to face the approaching ghostly arms. This much power for such a young child. The Prince of Darkness was previously disclosed to us, but this is merely. Kisame yelled, Itachi, to catch Itachi's attention. We're going to be in real shit if we don't do anything, said Kisame. Itachi then turned to face the approaching attack and responded. The best thing we can do is to fend them off for as long as we can. Naruto is bound to get tired. Eventually. Itachi replied to his companion. He said that last bit even though he wasn't sure about it. Kisame said, taking a stance with his sword, TCH, well, we don't really have any other choice. Itachi and Kisame had no choice but to repel the approaching ghostly body parts that emerged from the smoke. Thankfully, before they are able to defend themselves. Below them, a purple magic circle materialized, and then abruptly, they vanished into thin air. When Kirin and Naruto saw what had happened to the two missing ninjas, they were both taken aback. Did they just jump back in time? Naruto inquired, startled. Yes, that was definitely a magic circle that appeared, Kirin replied. However, how? Not even a hint of magic did they display, said Naruto. Kirin turned to Naruto and said, my guess is, it was someone else who teleported them away. If so, you have your answer regarding whether or not other people still use magic, and most likely, it was a member of their group who teleported them away with magic knowledge. Damn, Naruto uttered, and Kirin gave a nod. Kirin remarked, yeah, they'll definitely be a problem in the future. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes. Yes, he replied, waving his hand to the side. Then, as the smoke started to clear out of the hallway, Yukino's voice could be heard from behind. Naruto. When Naruto turned around, Jiraiya was following closely behind her as she ran in his direction. As she approached, Yukino inquired, what happened? Naruto remarked, they got away. Jiraiya questioned, just like that? How, though? Naruto turned around and said, someone has interfered. Yukino replied, well, at least they're gone, and you're safe. Maybe they took Sasuke? Where is he? A terrified Yukino exclaimed. Naruto held out his hand and said, no, he's safe, look. With his back to the wall, Sasuke was revealed as purple smoke began to form and then fade. Sasuke. Yukino exclaimed as she hurried over to him and knelt down beside him. What happened to him? She questioned, mainly to herself. Her gaze remained fixed on her partner. In a daze, Naruto glanced at Sasuke and Yukino together. Seeing them together gave him that uncomfortable, empty feeling all over again, even though his face was expressionless. He was startled out of his reverie when he sensed presence behind the shattered hallway wall. Clang. Then someone threw a kunai across the hallway, striking a wall close to them and drawing everyone's attention. They heard footsteps, fast ones, coming toward them. It turned out to be Dynamic. Entry. Guy. Jiraiya exclaimed, startled. He was then directed in the direction of the wall. Guy. The one who gave Jiraiya a kick. Abruptly halted, rubbed his neck sheepishly, and apologized. Guy looked at Jiraiya quiveringly and said sheepishly, oh, sorry, I thought you were the enemy. At this, Chakra stuck her head out of Naruto's jacket. How could he think that someone is his enemy? She pondered. I was in a rush, and I forgot my mirror. So I had to make do with my headband instead, but it was all blurry. So I just thought that the biggest one was the enemy. Haha. Guy went on. At the end, he laughed awkwardly. Was I just called fat by him inadvertently? With narrowed eyes, Jiraiya thought, enough about that. Yukino then yelled, we have to get Sasuke to the hospital immediately. She continued fervently. With agreement, Naruto said, she's right. He needs immediate attention. His arm and ribs are broken, and he lost consciousness from his brother using a genjutsu, he went on. Guy scowled as his eyes widened, I see. Yukino looked at Jiraiya, her expression worried, and she clenched her fist. Is Sasuke going to be okay? Yukino inquired. He just experienced a significant amount of psychological trauma. He won't be waking up anytime soon, Jiraiya stated. Yukino's fist tightened even more as she turned to face the unconscious Uchiha after hearing this. She was of no use to anyone during the entire exchange. Like before, Yukino bit her lower lip and muttered to herself, I was useless, as she watched her boyfriend suffer severe injuries while Naruto handled all the fighting. She then gave Sasuke a gentle peck on the forehead and stroked his cheek from behind. At the scene, Naruto's arm twitched and he averted his gaze. It was the same sensation in his chest, only more intense. Jiraiya stated, that's why we're going to find her now, surprising Guy. Huh? You mean, her? He asked, startled. Jiraiya gave a nod. The slug user who can cure any illness, who is also a Sannin like me. Jiraiya laughed. Princess Tsunade. Scene alteration. In some dark, unidentified place. After two purple magic circles materialized on the ground, Itachi and Kisame emerge. Before they realized where they ended up, they were initially startled. Itachi remarked, we're back at the hideout? Kisame remarked, hey, guess that bastard saved us. He was grinning, but there was a hint of anger in his voice as well. Within one of the Akatsuki's covert bases were the two ninjas who went missing. With only a few torches illuminating the walls, the surrounding area appears to be the interior of a cave. A deep voice said, Itachi, Kisame. The pair of ninjas swiftly pivoted to confront 8 additional figures donning identical black cloaks adorned with crimson clouds. The voices mockingly said, hey, you two look like shit. Were the missions too much for you? As they sat around a round table. A second voice said, how pathetic, and this was one of the easiest missions you had. A third voice, obviously female, said, something must have really happened then, to the point he would have to teleport you two back here. Kisame growled at the voices, shut up, and, we didn't ask to be teleported, we could have handled it ourselves. Oh really? The deep voice from earlier said once more. Then why did he tell us that you were in trouble and needed saving? The other voice chuckled, growing sinister. Now, don't be too hard on them. If the mission was simply too hard, then there is nothing to be done about it if they can't handle it. Kisame clenched his teeth and said, "TCH, enough," was said by a new, emotionless voice, and everyone fell silent. Another figure stood behind them. The darkness made it impossible to identify the figure. Now, I want to report on what happened during your mission. With anticipation for Itachi and Kisami's answers, everyone turned to face them. Kisame opened his mouth to speak, but Itachi spoke first. Itachi surprised a few of the figures by saying, "Before we start giving our report on the mission, there are some things you all should know. First, we may have found a potential member in the future." Itachi unleashed the bomb on everyone in the room, shocking even Kisame, who was with him, saying, "Second, and this is the most important. I found out the one who caused that sudden surge of power a month ago." "What, you found out? Explain." That emotionless voice called out, "Silence! You found out who caused it, so who exactly is it?" The voice said, attempting to silence everyone. "Yeah, and how did you find out when I was with you the whole time?" replied Kisame. Itachi shocked everyone once more by saying, "I only found out a little bit ago. The one who caused it was Naruto Uzumaki." He also managed to completely ignore the figure that flinched at the mention of Uzumaki. Kisame exclaimed, "The Nine Tails brat?" with surprise. A bewildered voice said, "So, you made contact with the Jinchuriki? Couldn't it have been just the Nine Tails power? You really think the Nine Tails power was that strong that it can be felt all throughout the elemental nations?" replied the female voice. "If it wasn't that, then what could the brat have that made the surge of power then?" another individual responded. Itachi explained, "It's because he's the Prince of Darkness." Everyone fell silent. The entire base fell silent as they tried to process what Itachi had just said. "That's why we needed to be teleported out of there. If we didn't, who knows what would have happened to us," Itachi went on. Hee ha ha. There was a chuckle going around that sounded like jesters. Everyone looked up at a tall figure that had suddenly materialized. It was dressed in a clown. Appropriate black and gray ensemble. Although the figure's enormous smile was visible to all, his entire face was hidden by a mask. He was also sporting a large, clown appropriate hat with bells on the sides. Itachi said, "Well, now that you want to make yourself known, I have a question for you." The clown merely stared without responding. "Why were you holding information from us about the Prince of Darkness?" asked Itachi. "Hold on, Itachi, you're saying the brat is this Prince of Darkness? Is it because he showed us a mysterious power we never seen before?" Kisame inquired. He. It's not just that, but also because my brother muttered the name, Prince of Darkness, while staring at Naruto. Itachi responded. He. Not only that, but the personality he showed us that was completely different from what I remember, while I was still in Anbu. It's completely different. I believe something happened that caused this change. Itachi went on. He. Pointing at the clown who was still laughing, Itachi said, "We were warned about the Prince of Darkness from him. He. And yet us two were almost beaten by him. But, of course he knew that, which is why he teleported us." He. Kisame looked at the clown and said, "Hold on, what makes you think we were almost beaten? We could have handled it if it weren't for this bastard's interference." He. We were almost beaten. I can tell, and we may have more experience than him, however the power he showed us was even greater than ours, almost limitless, Itachi responded. Everyone at the table was silently listening to Itachi and Kisami's back and forth conversation. Itachi then looked back at the clown. "You must have some connection to this Prince of Darkness and how much power he wields. You even know how much of a threat the Prince of Darkness is, right? Epitaph?" Itachi replied to the clown. Everyone simply remained silent. They waited for a response. They were hoping to speak with the clown. But the clown just kept his wide smile on his face and stared at them without moving. Next, though, he, ha ha. Scene alteration. Okay, guy. I'll leave Sasuke to you then. Jiraiya, Yukino, Chakra, and Naruto, in his base form, were outside the gates. Guy was preparing to return to the village while carrying the unconscious Uchiha on his back. Naruto was listening to Jiraiya and Guy in silence. Guy nodded in response to Jiraiya's statement, "You can leave it to me. I won't let anything happen to him." He glanced first at Sasuke and then at Yukino, who had her hair blocking her eyes as she cast a downward glance. "Do you want to go back?" Naruto asked, sighing as he saw her chewing her lip while thinking about something. To her surprise, Yukino perked up. She glanced first at Naruto and then at Sasuke, who was unconscious. In order to ensure that Sasuke had not suffered any more harm while she was gone, she wished to return to the village. However, she was also reluctant to part from Naruto in light of what had transpired just now. She was also curious as to why Naruto was being pursued by the two missing ninjas. I'm not sure," Yukino uttered, averting his gaze. Naruto let out a sigh. He could tell she was thinking about returning or staying with him. It felt good that she wanted to stay with him after what had happened, he wouldn't lie. However, he believed it would be best if she returned to her safe haven. He didn't want Yukino to get in the way of another potential run-in with Itachi or Kisame. Naruto abruptly said, "I think you should go back." Yukino raised her head in surprise at what Naruto had said, saying, "Huh?" Again, Naruto said, "I think you should go back to the village. If you decide to go back, it doesn't change what we're going to do. We will still go and find this Tsunade and bring her back and have her heal Kakashi, Sensei and Sasuke." Naruto continued. Yukino said, "But, what about you? What about me?" A perplexed Naruto asked. "It's true that I want to go back with Sasuke, but I also wanted to stay in case they attack you again. What if those two show up again? I know that they are after you for some reason I haven't found out about," Yukino said, looking back down before grabbing his sleeve. Yukino said, her tone darkening at the end, "I don't want to leave you again like I did before, and, if anything ever happened to you while I could have done something about it. I don't know what I would have done," unknown to Naruto and her. Her eyes briefly turned green before going back to their usual purple color. Naruto inquired once more, "Will you go back or not?" Glancing up, Yukino shook her head at him. "I'm staying," Yukino responded, her choice set in stone. Naruto sighed once more, "You can do what you want," to which Yukino nodded and smiled. Guy called out to the Genins, "Master Jiraiya." Guy started to say, "Please make sure you find Lady Tsunade, and..." But Yukino and Naruto interrupted. Naruto said, "You don't have to worry. We'll make sure to find her." Yukino agreed, nodding in agreement. Yukino said, glancing last at Sasuke, "We'll bring her back and make sure she heals everyone, promise." Startled, Guy turned to face the two genin. Guy grinned and said, "Naruto, Yukino, you've got guts, and I like that." Jiraiya grinned and placed a hand on the two's heads. "I'm going to give this to you both," he smirked and continued. Guy's words piqued Yukino and Naruto's interest, and they both wondered what he would give them. Chakra and Kirin were intrigued too, and they listened. Guy said, pulling out, "This made Lee stronger, and I have no doubt that you will as well. A pair of green spandex clothes?" Together, Yukino and Naruto exclaimed, "Huh?" as they both peered at the trailing spandex. Jiraiya and Chakra exchanged a disgusted look, but Kirin was looking at the green spandex with curiosity. Guy grinned and said, "They're breathable and perfectly designed for free movement." "Free movement?" Guy gave a thumbs up, adding, "You'll notice the difference immediately if you try them on." Kirin thought in fascination. Yukino and Naruto exchanged glances as the spandex was handed to them. "Are you actually thinking of wearing it?" Naruto asked, drawing Chakra's confused glance. Yukino shook her head. They then waved at Guy, who was now returning to the village. Yukino peered down at the green spandex, examining it. "I wonder how I would look if I put this on," she muttered to herself. Chakra sighed softly as she clarified, "No, I just wanted to see how I would look. I was just curious, is all." Gazing at his own spandex, Naruto contemplated his next move. What use does it even have for him, since he wasn't even going to wear it? "I think you should keep it. It would give you an advantage with its free movement during battle, so it would be a waste to just trash it," Kirin replied. Quick. You could almost hear the cracking of bones as the three heads of Jiraiya, Naruto, and Chakra turned to face Kirin. When he said it, they looked at him like he was crazy. Yukino, meanwhile, just observed thoughtfully. Kirin said something, but she didn't hear him. Merely because she was unable to. "You genuinely think Naruto ought to wear this? Something?" Chakra questioned, gesturing with her paw to the spandex. Jiraiya pointed at Guy and said, No, I don't even want to be caught walking around with someone wearing it. Look at what's right in front of you." Yukino turned to face Guy because she believed Jiraiya was speaking to both her and Naruto. but she quickly averted her gaze out of humiliation. The fact that so many people were staring at her due to her current attire was bad enough. But it would just multiply, and not in a good way, if she wore the spandex for whatever reason. Naruto just closed his eyes, but Chakra turned away in disgust as well. They all agreed when Jiraiya said, "That's totally uncool." No, I'm not saying he should put it on. I'm saying if we can keep this spandex, along with the material that makes the wearer free movement, I can maybe pass on that material to Naruto's current outfit to make it more easy for fighting. That's what you meant to say, huh? Yes, that would benefit him greatly, Chakra agreed, nodding her head. She appears to be knowledgeable about Kirin's topics. Naruto thought, I'll ask them about it later. Guy, in the meantime, turned to face them and gave them a final thumbs up and smile. Pop.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.